Chapter 21-24. Because representatives from all over the world will be attending this conference, and this world is just an ordinary world, unlike the Demon High School, where they can teleport to their destination with a magic circle. Therefore, the time of the conference is set at noon. After the representatives from all over the world arrived at the embassy, they will be arranged to rest in their own rooms. After lunch, they will gather in the conference room and start the conference. Therefore, Noah and the others actually came early. However, it is necessary to come early. If the conference starts right away, then many things will not be prepared. Whether it is for their own people or for outsiders, this is the case. It was precisely because of this that many representatives from various countries had arrived in advance and started making preparations. Of course, these preparations, as for what, only the people involved know. And as the host, Xingzi has a lot of preparations. From welcoming the guests to settling them down. From settling them down to taking care of them. From taking care of them to greeting them. From greeting them to probing them. And so on and so forth. Similar preparations need to be done by Xingzi. Among them, the most important one is safety. After all, representatives from all over the world are gathered here. If something happens to one of them in the Tokyo area, then the country that the representative is from will definitely ask the Tokyo area to bear extraordinary blame and punishment. Therefore, the safety of the representatives is definitely the most important thing during this international conference. Although I don't know if terrorists will suddenly attack the embassy and cause harm to the important representatives in the embassy, but just in case, I have gathered all the police and self-defense forces here. Xingzi said to Noah as they walked in the corridor of the embassy. In addition to the various miscellaneous arrangements during the conference, many senior officials in the Tokyo area have been transferred here to help. Now, let me introduce you to the people in charge of these tasks. Xingzi said as he brought Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro to a lounge. A guard stepped forward and opened the door of the lounge, allowing everyone to see the scene inside. Immediately, Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro all saw it. In the resting room, there were 3 people talking. The group that was talking was a group of 2 men and a woman. The 2 men gave off a completely different feeling. One was a tall young man wearing a suit and glasses, giving off a shrewd feeling. The other was a middle-aged man wearing a military uniform and a military cap, giving off a strong and experienced feeling. The only woman in the room was a young girl. Wearing a kimono, holding an iron fan, a beautiful young girl with a beauty mark under the corner of her eye. Looking at the 2 men and 1 woman talking, Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro's attention was instantly taken away by the young girl. Of course, it was not that Noah and Rentaro only had beautiful women in their eyes, nor was it that Mugging had any special fetishes. The reason why they were attracted to the girl in kimono was because she was someone they were familiar. Thus, Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro were all shocked. Wei. The girl in the kimono was the daughter of the president of the world's largest weapons company, Sima Heavy Industries, Sima Weiji. She had once helped Noah and Rentaro a lot, and was also at loggerheads with Mogensha. Huh. Wei Sima turned her head and looked at the door. Then, her eyes lit up, and she stood up with a smile. Everyone, long time no see. Hearing this, Noya and Ryotaro looked at each other, both feeling somewhat relieved. Obviously, both of them knew why Wei Sima was here. Undoubtedly, as the acting president of Fairy Tail, Mugging was usually very smart and capable. But at this time, blood rushed to his head and he stared at Wei Sima without thinking. Why are you here? Oh. Wei Sima pretended to be surprised as if she didn't notice Mugging's existence until now. So you're here too? Mugging? I understand. Mugging smiled. His smile was very bright. You're here to cause trouble, right? With that said, Mugging did not hesitate to reach for the blade on his waist, as if he wanted to pull it out. Seeing this, Noah and Rentaro were shocked. Although they knew the relationship between Mugging and Wei Sima was extremely bad, this girl didn't know how much trouble she would cause if she pulled the sword out in this situation. Immediately, Noah knocked on Mugging's head, causing her to cry out in pain. Mugging held her head and stared at Noah with tears in her eyes. Noah didn't even bother with her. He pressed down on her head and restrained her. Then, he looked at Wei Ji and laughed bitterly. Miss Sima, please don't provoke my girl here, okay? I didn't provoke Mugging. Wei Sima was still smiling, but her words were like this. For the president of a private company who was once a poor ghost who couldn't even afford a bowl of eel rice, as the current president of Sima Heavy Industries, how could I do such a tasteless thing as stimulating inferior people? Wasn't this an obvious provocation? Ha. Ha 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 ha. Mugen's smile twitched as she stiffly turned her head and looked at Noah. Noah, this is my lifetime request. Let me kill this snake girl, okay? Hearing this, Noah didn't have time to react before Wei Sima spoke. Aya, how scary. Wei Sima pretended to shout. Little Noah, you have to protect me, okay? Saying this, Wei Sima directly went to Noah's side and hugged his arm. Mugen's face twitched when she saw this. Ryutaru, on the other hand, seemed to have foreseen what was about to happen. He turned his head away as if he couldn't bear to watch, only to be shocked again. Because in Rentaro's line of sight, the sage son of heaven was standing there, staring at Wei Sima who was hugging Noah's arm. The expression on his face completely faded. Rentaro had to swear that this was the first time he saw the kind and peace-loving sage son of heaven show such an expression. Not to mention Rentaro, even Noah, who had seen many of the sage's girlish side in private, had never seen such an expression before. He immediately felt a chill run down his spine. However, before Noah could push Wei Sima away, Mugging fiercely hugged Noah's other arm. Noah almost screamed. It couldn't be helped. Due to using too much strength, Mugen's voluptuous upper body was directly pressed against Noah's arm. The overly soft and comfortable feeling made Noah's heart skip a beat. However, Mugging didn't notice this at all. She hugged Noah tightly and glared at Wei Sima. Let go of me. Snake girl. Mugging shouted. Do you think someone like you can hug the guild leader of Fairy Tale? With my relationship with little Noah, what's a hug? Not only did Wei Sima not let go, she hugged even harder. Facing the angry Mugging, she revealed a fake smile that didn't have a trace of a smile. A woman like you who relied on little Noah's favor to climb to your current position should stay away from little Noah. Obediently go back to being the leader of a poor company that can't even afford eel rice. Yes, I did rely on Noah's favor to become the acting leader of Fairy Tale. Mugging didn't want to be outdone. Then what about you? Don't tell me you didn't rely on your Sima clan to climb to your current position? Ho ho. You want to use your family background to erase my, Wei Sima's, efforts? Wei Sima's smile became more and more fake. However, this is the only way you can find a sense of superiority from me. I forgive you, Mugging. Veins popped out on Mugen's forehead. Wei Sima's smile also began to twitch. The two stared at each other like this. Sparks seemed to come out from the friction of their gazes, making the surrounding atmosphere more and more dangerous. And Noah, who was tragically reduced to being sandwiched between the two girls, felt his hand being hugged tighter and tighter. Although it could be said to be wonderful in any situation, the gaze from the Holy Son of Heaven made Noah feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. At this moment, Noah felt a sharp gaze on his body. Chapter 21-25. When that sharp gaze was directed at Noah, Noah was stunned. Because Noah, with his superior perceptive ability, could clearly feel that in that sharp gaze, there was a chilling negative emotion. That kind of negative emotion was the same as the hatred of Noah's bodyguard, or even worse. Immediately, when Noah was stunned, that gaze suddenly disappeared. Noah suddenly frowned, raised his head, and looked forward. There, the two men who were talking to Wei Weaver were both looking at Noah. However, the two's expressions were completely different. The young man in the suit had a smile on his face and gave Noah a refreshing expression. The middle-aged man in the military uniform had a straight face. He looked at Noah as if he was looking at a playboy. Even if he didn't show any disgust, the displeasure in his eyes was quite obvious. Under such circumstances, Noah narrowed his eyes and looked at Xing Tianzi. Xing Tianzi, can I trouble you to introduce them to me? That one sentence completely washed away the comical atmosphere around them. Mugging and Wei Weaver realized what kind of situation they were in and quickly let go of Noah's hand. Xing Tianzi coughed, stepped forward, and said to Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro. Let me introduce them to you. Then, Xing Tianzi looked at the middle-aged man in the military uniform. This is the Supreme Commander of the Tokyo Self-Defense Forces. He is responsible for leading the self-defense forces. This time, he is in charge of the posts and patrols around the embassy. I am Soma Muneshi. The middle-aged commander said in a sarcastic tone. Thanks to Xing Tianzi's kindness, I am the commander of the self-defense forces. I have heard of your names a long time ago. It's really an eye-opener for me to see you here with a playful attitude. Needless to say, who Soma Muneshi was referring to. At that moment, both Mugging and Wei Weaver showed a somewhat awkward expression. They couldn't help but look at each other, then they snorted and turned their heads away. The hatred between the two of them was indeed unusually high. Seeing that the atmosphere had become dangerous, Elysian's Son of Heaven seemed to want to smooth things over, and introduced another person. This is the police of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. He is responsible for leading the relevant personnel of the police department to protect the safety of the representatives. Hello. The young man in the suit smiled politely at everyone. I am Toshiro, please take care of me. That candid performance gave everyone a good impression. Compared to Xiangma Zongxiong, his attitude was like heaven and earth. Looking at the young man who called himself Toshiro, Mugging and Rentaro both seemed to have thought of something important and stood up in surprise. Mugging-san. Rentaro looked at Mugging in surprise. This person can't be you. Mugging also looked at Cupboard Tualan with surprise and uncertainty, and asked with great uncertainty. Is it really you? Mr. Toshiro? You finally remembered me? Cupboard Toshiro smiled happily. I thought Tomato-san had forgotten about me. How could that be? Mugging quickly shook her head and smiled apologetically. Sorry, it's just that I haven't seen you for a long time, so I didn't think of you. That's good. Toshiro was relieved. I thought Tomato-san had really forgotten about me, then I would be very sad. You must be joking. Mugging showed a rare embarrassed expression. Seeing Mugging like this, Rentaro's expression became a little unhappy. Noah's heart skipped a beat. It seems that Mugging and Rentaro both know this police officer called Toshiro. With this thought in mind, Noah didn't ask Mugging and Rentaro anything on the spot. Instead, he nodded to Soma Muneshi and Toshiro. I'm Noah Doria, I was a little rude just now, please don't take it to heart. Soma Muneshi snorted and didn't say anything. How could that be? Toshiro responded to Noah in a friendly manner. Tomato-san and Tomato-san's relationship has been so good since young, and you haven't seen each other for so long, you must miss each other very much, right? Who has a good relationship with this guy? Mugging and Unweaver didn't hesitate to speak at the same time, then they glared at each other and shouted at the same time. Don't copy me. Watching this scene, Ryotaru began to sweat. Even Toshiro of the cabinet could only smile wryly. Soma Muneshi seemed to have had enough and shouted angrily. Enough. If you think this is a place to hold a party, then go back. Xiangma Zongxiong's roar gave everyone a fright. Even Noah narrowed his eyes and looked directly at Soma Muneshi. Commander Soma. Seiko looked at Soma Muneshi in shock. What are you doing? Lord Seiko, forgive me for not being able to recognize this group of brats. Soma Muneshi said coldly. This is a serious international meeting place, and now that representatives from all over the world are gathered here, it is no doubt an honor for our Tokyo region, but this group of brats is fooling around in such a serious place, I really can't stand it anymore. You. Mugging and Unweaver's face suddenly became a little ugly. Admittedly, in such an occasion, Mugging and Unweaver's quarrel was a bit ridiculous, but Soma Muneshi's words were too harsh, right? Seiko frowned, and when he was about to say something, he was stopped by Noah. Commander Soma, right? Noah looked at Soma Muneshi. I'm sorry, my representative was a bit ridiculous, I apologize on his behalf. Hearing this, Xiangma Zongxiong revealed a mocking expression. Just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted by Noah. However, Commander Soma. Noah said indifferently. I have to give you a warning. Warning? Soma Muneshi's eyes widened, and he was so angry that he laughed. You're warning me? What? Am I not qualified to warn you? Noah looked at Soma Muneshi with a smile. You seem to think that we are the family members of the Holy Son of Heaven. You keep calling us little brats. But I have to remind you that the so-called serious international conference in your eyes is held for my guild. Have you forgotten? Soma Muneshi opened his mouth, and only then did he suddenly realize. That's right, these people in front of him were not Seiko's subordinates, nor were they residents of Tokyo. In addition to Weaver, Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro all came from Fairyland, and they were the top management of Fairy Tail. This time, the international conference was held because of Fairy Tail. The group of brats in Soma Muneshi's eyes were not here to observe, but to participate in the meeting as members of the meeting. We were invited to participate in this international meeting, logically speaking, we are guests, but is this how your country treats guests? Noah said lightly. If that's the case, then I think, Fairyland will not participate in this international meeting. As soon as these words came out, other people's reactions aside, Soma Muneshi finally broke out in a cold sweat. If Noah really left, this international meeting would definitely not continue, and they would have to announce the disbandment. Moreover, the world would not be able to denounce Fairyland. Because, it was not that Fairyland did not want to participate in the meeting, but if the people of Tokyo neglected a country's representative, causing them to leave in anger, the world's blame would be directed to Tokyo, and not Fairyland. At that time, in Soma Muneshi's eyes, the international meeting that gathered representatives from all over the country, and for Tokyo, would become a scandal in Tokyo. As for him, Soma Muneshi, he would have to admit all the responsibility, and under the condemnation of the world, he would be ousted by the angry Tokyo officials and people, and even become a street rat. Thinking of this, Soma Muneshi's forehead was full of sweat. Noah was right. Because Noah and the others were too close to Seiko, and because they were too young, Soma Muneshi thought of Noah and the others as Seiko's family group, the rising stars of Tokyo, and completely forgot that they were not from Tokyo at all. This was also because Weaver was in a mess with Noah and the others, so it gave Soma Muneshi this illusion. Now, it was too late for regrets. Chapter 21-26. Under Noah's gaze, Soma Muneshi squeezed out a voice with much difficulty, but he did not know what to say. This was a real international issue. Although Fairyland was only a new city discovered a year ago, in the eyes of the world, this new force was no different from a new country. Moreover, it was a powerful country with the ability to dominate the world. However, even so, it still could not erase the fact that Fairyland's history was too short. Even the guild that traced the origin of Fairyland, Fairy Tail, was just a civilian organization founded by Noah 4 or 5 years ago. Its history was too short. Therefore, many people would subconsciously ignore the fact that Fairyland was a force that was not weaker than a major country, and instead treated it as a civilian guild. Soma Muneshi also made the same mistake. In addition, Noah, Mugging, and Rentaro were all once part of the Tokyo area. As a result, the commander of the self-defense forces subconsciously treated Noah and the others not as guests, but as a group of newcomers in the Tokyo area. Therefore, Soma Muneshi put on airs. Unfortunately, he put on airs against the wrong people. Now, the commander of the self-defense forces was undoubtedly in a difficult situation. Under such circumstances, one person stood up. I'm really sorry, President Noah. Toshiro quickly bowed and apologized to Noah. Commander Soma, it's just that today's international conference is too important, and there is no room for mistakes, so he was too nervous and caused this discourtesy. Please forgive Commander Soma. With that said, Toshiro even winked at Soma Munakika. Soma Munakika finally reacted, gritted his teeth, and spoke with some reluctance. I'm sorry, I was rude, please don't take it to heart. Mugging and Unwoven's expressions looked a lot better after seeing Soma Munakika apologize. As for Noah, he smiled slightly. Forget it, although it's a little unpleasant, we did have some discourtesy on our side, so let's just forget about it. Hearing this, Rintaro let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Noah was strong enough to not embarrass Mugging and Wei too much. Otherwise, Ryutaru himself would have rushed out first. Mugging and Wei Woven, of course, knew that Noah was helping them vent their anger. They looked at Noah with gratitude. Little did they know that although Noah appeared to be very strong, he was just saying that he would leave. Of course, in this way, Noah could use this excuse to leave directly and not participate in the meeting to avoid being targeted by countries around the world. However, as mentioned before, Tokyo would definitely bear all kinds of responsibilities. At that time, Soma Munhide's downfall would be a small matter. After all, he had spoken rudely, so he deserved it. However, as the ruler of Tokyo, Sei Tianzi would also be criticized. Noah could ignore the accusations he suffered in Tokyo, but he couldn't ignore his lover being accused by others. Therefore, Noah was just saying it to scare Soma Munhide. He wouldn't really leave directly. In this regard, Sei Tianzi himself was the clearest. He smiled at Noah and immediately said to Toshiro and Soma Munhide. The two of you are leading the Metropolitan Police Department and the Self-Defense Forces respectively. Both of you are responsible for the safety of this international conference. Because of the scale and importance of this international conference, I understand that the two of you must be somewhat nervous, but you must not neglect the foreign representatives because of this, understand? Yes. Toshiro and Soma Munhide bowed their heads. Good. Sei Tianzi nodded. Then, the two of you can go out and continue with your work. Toshiro and Soma Munhide bowed to everyone one by one and then left the room. Phew, only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief as if they had relaxed a little. Really, what kind of person is that person? Mugging said rather unhappily. I didn't offend him. To be precise, we didn't offend him, but he offended us. Wei Ji raised the iron fan in her hand and covered the lower half of her face and laughed. Although he's the commander of the self-defense forces, he's too arrogant. Shouldn't we teach him a lesson? Don't mess around. Rentaro quickly warned. I know that your Sima family is now a big family in Tokyo, but it's your fault. It's a bit unreasonable to seek revenge. Why would I? Wei Ji suddenly turned her head. I was just joking. Ha 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 ha. Like hell I'll believe you. Mugging and Rentaro both cursed in their hearts. However, that Soma Munhide was indeed a bit arrogant. Letting Wei Ji teach him a lesson might not be a bad thing. Although Soma Munhide was the commander of the self-defense forces, Wei Ji had many ways to deal with him. After all, today's Sima family was different from 3 years ago. They were no longer just a weapons company, they were also deeply involved in politics. Don't forget, 3 years ago, it was because the Sima family replaced the Tentong family's position and took over the Tentong family's position. That's why the Tokyo region didn't fall into a state of political paralysis and the Tentong family was completely removed. Therefore, today's Sima family was almost equivalent to the Tentong family's position in Tokyo. However, the Tentong family had a Tentong chrysanthemum as an assistant to the Holy Son of Heaven. Their position was more stable and their influence in politics was greater. Although the Sima family didn't have an assistant to the Holy Son of Heaven, the influence of the weapons company in Tokyo was just enough to fill the gap. It was because of this that Wei Ji appeared here. Toshiro Kanejima was responsible for leading the Metropolitan Police Department's police to protect the safety of the world's representatives. Soma Munhide was responsible for leading the self-defense forces guards to set up a heavy defense line in the embassy. Wei Ji was responsible for leading the various senior officials in Tokyo. She was responsible for welcoming guests, taking care of them, preparing meals, and various other chores. In other words, the above 3 people were directly in charge of this international conference and were under the command of the Holy Son of Heaven. The only thing he didn't expect was that Soma Myunhide would suddenly go crazy and even scold Wei Ji. Perhaps it was because the self-defense forces had a considerable rejection of the police, so Soma Myunhide's attitude towards Noah's group was so bad that he thought Noah's group was a small police company. That's right. Noah looked at Mugeng and Rentaro. That Toshiro Kanejima, do you know him? Mugeng and Rentaro suddenly became a little hesitant. On the contrary, Wei Ji gave a mischievous smile and directly stated the reason. Of course I know him. Mugeng and Kanejima were originally engaged. Engaged? Noah was stunned. Betrothed? Mugeng and Kanejima were engaged. In other words, the 2 of them were engaged in a relationship. Do you understand? Little Noah. Wei Ji was like a judge pronouncing a sentence as she closed the iron fan in her hand and pointed at Mugeng. Undoubtedly, this person is half a married woman, but she still clings to you and deceives your feelings. Her goal is to become the acting president of Fairy Tale. An unexpected conspiracy theory appeared. Even Seiji and Rentaro were shocked by Wei Ji's righteous tone and were stunned. As for Noah, he was even more stunned. What nonsense are you talking about? Mugeng completely lost her calm as she frantically explained to Noah. It's not like that, I was only engaged with Kanejima, and it was an engagement set by the Tendo family without permission. I never agreed, and when I left the Tendo family, the engagement was already cancelled. Perhaps because Mugeng was too desperate to explain, her face turned red as she screamed. I'm still a virgin. As soon as she said this, the whole room was silent. The Holy Son of Heaven felt as if he had been stabbed by these words. His face turned red. Wei Ji laughed out loud as if her evil plan had succeeded. Ryutaru, on the other hand, was a little embarrassed, but at the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. As for Noah, the corner of his mouth kept twitching. After a while, he said with some hesitation. Okay, you're still a virgin, but that doesn't seem to have anything to do with me. This sentence finally woke Mugeng up. Wah! Half a second later, a cry filled with grief and indignation resounded throughout the embassy. Chapter 21-27. In the corner of the lounge, Mugeng sat with her head lowered. Her face was covered by her long bangs, but she gave off the feeling of someone who had given up on herself. About that. Ryutaru seemed to be unable to bear it. He cautiously asked Noah, who was beside him. Are you sure you don't want to comfort Mugeng-san? How am I supposed to comfort her? Noah said helplessly. Right now, whenever Mugeng sees my face, she'll be reminded of the embarrassing incident. If I go over to comfort her, I'll only be adding insult to injury. Then what should we do? Ryutaru asked helplessly. Are we just going to leave her like this? Isn't it better to just leave her be? Wei Weaver said with a smile. It's just a Mugeng. Just let her be. I'll get little Noah to pick it up later. What do you mean pick her up? Noah was speechless. Mugeng isn't my pet, is that so? Wei Weaver said in surprise. If Mugeng didn't become your pet, how could she have gotten to where she is now? Noah and Ryutaru both laughed dryly. The eldest daughter of the Sima family was indeed a devious person. By the way, don't you have to work? Ryutaru quickly changed the topic. You're in charge of all kinds of chores. There should be a lot of things for you to do, right? The basic work has already been arranged. My remaining job is to deal with any unexpected situations and maintain contact with my subordinates. Wei Weaver said calmly. Originally, I should have accompanied the Holy Son of Heaven to visit the representatives of the various countries and greet them. However, the Holy Son of Heaven asked me to stay behind and went to greet the representatives by himself. Hence, I had nothing to do. Is that okay? Ryutaru frowned. Since they're representatives from all over the world, they're definitely not simple characters. Isn't it too risky for Lord Xingzi to deal with those cunning people alone? Now is just the stage of testing each other. The most important thing is the conference. If we can't even get through this stage, we will be completely dominated by the representatives of the various countries at noon. Noah shrugged. That girl must have had such thoughts. That's why she resolutely went to the representatives' lounge alone. It's completely different from 3 years ago when she could only rely on the celestial chrysanthemum. If it wasn't for this, our Sima clan would have already produced a Holy Son of Heaven assistant official, replacing the position of the celestial chrysanthemum minister. Wei Ji spoke frankly. The current Lord Holy Son of Heaven is no longer the same as 3 years ago. Although she is still very young and excessively kind, it is her saint-like purity that firmly attracts everyone. Even the celestial child, Chrysanthemum, serves her from the bottom of his heart. He has never thought of usurping the throne. Indeed, in the past, although the celestial chrysanthemum minister represented the dark side of Tokyo, he had never thought of usurping the Holy Son of Heaven's position. In fact, the celestial chrysanthemum minister respected and loved the Holy Son of Heaven. Even when his crimes were exposed by the Holy Son of Heaven and the celestial chrysanthemum minister fell from grace due to the Holy Son of Heaven's help, he never resented the Holy Son of Heaven until his death. On the contrary, he was gratified by the Holy Son of Heaven's growth. In the current turbid era, the Holy Son of Heaven was very precious to the entire human race for being able to maintain such kindness and purity. Unfortunately, the purest flower in the world was inadvertently plucked by someone. Thinking of this, Noah once again realized that he was indeed a person blessed by the world. Without this level of protection, it would not be so easy to pluck this flower. While Noah was sighing, Ryotaro spoke to Noah again. Speaking of which, since Lord Xingzi has already gone to visit the representatives of the various countries, as the master of Fairyland, shouldn't you go and do a little formality? There's no need. Noah picked up the black tea on the table and leisurely sipped it while answering without hesitation. If it's a meeting for the purpose of networking and exchange, then I don't mind going through the motions and establishing a friendly relationship with the various countries. Unfortunately, they're not here to be friendly with us, but to target us. If that's the case, what's the point of asking about their well-being? Ryotaro thought about it carefully and found that it made sense. But can't we still sound out the opinions of the various countries' representatives? There's no need for that. Noah pursed his lips and smiled. Because no matter what they've prepared for the meeting in the afternoon, I'll make sure they're all speechless. His extremely confident and forceful speech made Ryotaro's heart surge slightly. Even Wei Ji's eyes were twinkling like little stars as she looked at Noah with a look of admiration. As expected of the man I've chosen. To be able to become a man who can compete for the world's hegemony in less than 5 years, you're not just for show. If I had known this would happen, I would have made my move earlier and taken you down to prevent mugging from taking advantage of me. The surge in Ryotaro's heart completely disappeared and was replaced by an indescribable feeling. Even Noah almost rolled his eyes as he said in annoyance. Even if I don't do anything and just sit here, it doesn't mean that the probing won't happen. Both Wei Ji and Ryotaro were slightly taken aback by this sentence. I'm well prepared, but other people aren't. Noah smiled meaningfully. So, even if I don't go looking for others, they might come looking for me. It was as if he was trying to prove that Noah wasn't lying. In the next second, there was a knock on the door. Wei Ji and Ryotaro immediately reacted and focused their attention on Noah. Noah was still drinking his tea as he nodded at Ryotaro. Ryotaro immediately stood up, stepped forward, opened the door, and walked out. After a while, Ryotaro came back in and looked at Noah with a serious expression. Noah asked when he saw the situation. Who is it? Ryotaro was silent for a moment before he spoke. Chiwoo Myunsuk. Noah raised an eyebrow, then smiled. I didn't think he would want to contact me. I thought he would never want to see me again. After all, Noah was the one who made this dictator fall. It must have left quite a scar in his heart. But that guy's got the guts. Noah put down his teacup and said, "Let him come in." Rentaro immediately nodded, turned around, and walked out again. Noah. Mugging finally recovered from the shock and came to Noah's side. Don't worry. Noah said calmly. 3 years ago, I had him under my thumb. 3 years later, I can do the same. Mugang's expression softened. He nodded and stood behind Noah. Not long after, Ryotaro opened the door and walked in with a person. That person was naturally Chiwoo Myunsuk. After 3 years, Chiwoo Myunsuk still gave off the same imposing aura as before. He was like a lion that was ready to devour its prey at any moment. However, 3 years ago, when they first met, Chiwoo Myunsuk only regarded Noah as the leader of a police organization with some ability. Every word he said was filled with extraordinary arrogance. Today, Chiwoo Myunsuk no longer had the same arrogance as before. The moment his eyes met with Noah's, his expression immediately became serious. Long time no see, President Chiwoo, Noah said with a faint smile. I haven't seen you for 3 years. It seems that your body is still as strong as before. After all, it wasn't easy for me to survive from your hands, Chiwoo Myunsuk said in a self-deprecating manner. If I die so casually, wouldn't that be very disrespectful to you? I don't think so. Noah spread his hands. After all, there's a distance between Fairyland and the Osaka area. The mountain is high and the emperor is far away. It's not easy to do anything. On the contrary, there should be many people in the Osaka area who hate President Chiwoo Myunsuk. I wouldn't be surprised if someone succeeded in venting their anger. Unfortunately, other than you, I've never been defeated by anyone. Chiwoo Myunsuk narrowed his eyes. I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's not that I'm disappointed. Noah glanced at Chiwoo Myunsuk. To me, whether you live or die really doesn't matter much. Chapter 21-28. Just like 3 years ago, the beginning of the conversation between Noah and Chiwoo Zhongshuan made the atmosphere extremely dangerous. The sinister atmosphere made Mugging and Rintaro's faces tense, while Meiji was secretly nervous. Under such circumstances, Noah and Zhongshuan looked at each other, one with a smile on his face, the other with an awkward expression. It was clear who had the upper hand. Seeing the atmosphere of the entire lounge become extremely heavy, Wei Ji seemed to want to break the deadlock. She coughed and stood up. Hello, President Zhongshuan. I haven't greeted you in a long time. The daughter of the Sima family? Zhongshuan turned his gaze and looked at Wei Ji. After looking at the kimono beauty in front of him for a while, he smiled unrestrainedly. I heard that your Sima clan has completely replaced the Tian Tong clan's position in the past. That's really worth celebrating. Thank you for the compliment. Wei Ji smiled sweetly. This time, it is also thanks to the Holy Son of Heaven that Wei Ji has the opportunity to serve the representatives of various countries. I am deeply honored. You're quite a sweet talker. No wonder the old man of the Sima family is assured to give you the political and commercial rights. At least on the surface, you're quite good. Zhongshuan said with a sarcastic tone. Also, you seem to have a good relationship with Fairyland. After all, if it weren't for President Noah, our Sima family wouldn't have today's status. Wei Ji knows how to repay kindness. Wei Ji replied unhurriedly. Besides, the Tokyo region and Fairyland are allies. As the Holy Son of Heaven's assistant, Wei Ji naturally has to have a good relationship with the leader of Fairyland. With that said, Wei Ji's tone changed. However, President Zhongshuan seems to have something to discuss with President Noah. It would be rude of me to stay here any longer, so I'll take my leave. After that, Wei Ji bowed to Zhongshuan, then glanced at Noah's direction. After seeing Noah nodding slightly, she smiled and left. Finally, only the rulers of Fairyland and Osaka were left at the scene. President Chiwoo. Mu Gung was like Noah's secretary as he greeted Chiwoo Zhongshuan. Please take a seat. Humph, Chiwoo Zhongshuan snorted, but he followed Mu Gung's instructions and sat opposite Noah. Looking at Mugging and Rentaro, who were standing by Noah's left and right, Chiwoo Zhongshuan said to the two of them, Back then, I never would have thought that the two brats left behind by the celestial Tong family would actually join the guild fairy tale. Furthermore, they even made such a big name for themselves. I guess I misjudged them. Hearing this, Mugging and Rintaro did not feel the slightest bit of joy at being praised. The two of them were no longer ignorant people. They wouldn't be deceived by such flowery words. Instead, they could clearly perceive the deeper meaning in other people's words. If even Mugging and Rintaro could sense it, there was no way Noah wouldn't know what Zimu Zhongshuan meant. 3 years ago, President Chiwu mentioned more than once that in order to fight for world hegemony, it was necessary to have a powerful force. For the sake of one's ambition, one must turn all the powerful guys into one's own pawns, right? Noah said casually. What? Has the president taken a fancy to Mugging and Rintaro? One is ranked 3rd in the IP ranking, and the other is ranked 7th. These two can be ranked in the top 10. Of course, I want them. Chiwu Zhongshuan stared at Noah. In this era, great power can decide everything. Only the side that has greater power can obtain the hegemony of the world. As the leader of Fairy Tale, you should understand this better than I do, right? Oh. Noah pretended to be confused. What do you mean? Are you trying to play dumb? Chiwu Zhongshuan said sarcastically, with a hint of jealousy in his tone. Now, who doesn't know that you have the ability to obtain the world? You've easily gotten what I've always wanted, haven't you? I'm even beginning to suspect that the reason you created Fairy Tale back then was to prepare for the hegemony of the world. Chiwu Zhongshuan's words made Mugging and Rintaro frown slightly, with a little anger surging in their hearts. As the heroes who built Fairyland to its current scale, Mugging and Rintaro knew better than anyone why Noah was working so hard. How could this ambitious guy before them understand Noah? To Noah, world hegemony was the most boring thing. Noah's efforts all along were not for some boring world hegemony, but to save those children who were hated and rejected for no reason. The reason why the children in Fairyland could live so happily, and the reason why the cursed children all over the world could find shelter, was all because of Noah's gentleness. However, in the eyes of others, Noah's gentleness had always been a conspiracy with a purpose. The rulers of many countries all over the world believed that the reason why Noah created Fairy Tale, built Fairyland, and provided shelter for the cursed children was to obtain the power of the cursed children and achieve his goal of world domination. No one would believe that a person would spend so much effort to do all this out of pure kindness. In this regard, as the acting president and tour group leader of Fairy Tale, Mugging and Rintaro could understand it best. This was because Mugging and Rintaro had also been questioned by others more than once, believing that the two of them helped Noah out of ambition, creating Fairyland, and working hard for Noah until their deaths. Who would have thought that? The reason why Mugging helped Noah without asking for anything in return was because Noah had helped her avenge her parents' death, and also gave her a new meaning in life, to not fall into the demonic path and become a person who could live under the sun. The reason why Rintaro helped Noah without asking for anything in return was because he and Noah were like-minded. Noah also wanted to save the cursed children, and also gave Rintaro the opportunity to save the world, defeat the protogut animals, and uphold justice. Therefore, Noah was indebted to both Mugging and Rintaro. In the hearts of Mugging and Rintaro, there was friendship toward Noah, gratitude toward Noah, and even admiration for Noah. However, there was a saying that went, measure the heart of a gentleman with one's own yardstick. Undoubtedly, there were some petty people who were extremely unforgiving, but were unwilling to believe that others were magnanimous as well. This referred to people with ulterior motives like Chiwu Zhongshuan. Did you think that just because you wanted to dominate the world, others had to do the same? President Chiwu, Mugging couldn't help but say. Dominating the world isn't as attractive as you think it is. That's right. Rintaro didn't hide the mockery in his voice. At least, that's how it is for us. Is that so? Chiwu Zhongshuan glanced at Mugging and Rintaro, then looked at Noah, who was quietly sipping his tea. Have you really never thought of dominating the world? The entire place fell silent. Under Chiwu Zhongshuan's gaze, Noah slowly raised his head, his expression extremely calm. If the whole world is filled with people like you, then I should really consider whether it's time for me to dominate the world, Noah said calmly. Otherwise, the world will really become a foul and stinky place. You. Chiwu Zhongshuan was immediately provoked, his fists clenched tightly. Noah spoke as if he hadn't seen anything. If you're here to confirm whether or not I have the intention of dominating the world, then are you satisfied with my answer? Chiwu Zhongshuan glared at Noah, his tightly clenched fists slowly unclenched. I admit that I underestimated you back then. I didn't expect you to be able to surpass me in just a few years, Chiwu Zhongshuan said in a low voice. However, I won't admit defeat just like that. With that, Chiwu Zhongshuan stood up and left. Looking at Chiwu Zhongshuan's back, Noah fell into deep thought. Chapter 21-29. With Chiwu Zhongshuan's departure, the entire lounge returned to a state of silence once again. Mugging and Rentaro had been watching Chiwu Zhongshuan's departure until he disappeared from their sight and the door was slammed shut. Only then did they retract their gazes and look at each other. Soon after, Rentaro spoke first. That guy is still as annoying as before. Rentaro was no stranger to Chiwu Zhongshuan. In the past, when he was in the Tentong family, Prime Minister Chrysanthemum Tentong had groomed Rentaro as a politician. Because of that, Rentaro had been to all kinds of occasions and had naturally met Chiwu Zhongshuan. However, it was because he had met Chiwu Zhongshuan that Rentaro would say such a thing. Most people would not have a good impression of someone as ambitious as Chiwu Zhongshuan, right? Although I've seen Chiwu Zhongshuan before, that was before I left the Tiantong family. Mugging crossed her arms, accentuating her ample bosom perfectly. After that, I've never seen the president again. Now that I think about it, it's great. It seemed that Mugging did not have a good impression of Chiwu Zhongshuan as well. When she thought about how it would turn into a confrontation between herself, the acting president, and Chiwu Zhongshuan if Noah did not return, Mugging found it very annoying no matter how she thought about it. Someone as ambitious as that would probably hate Fairyland's existence the most, right? Mugging pointed that out. In this meeting, the people who directly clashed with us should all be people like Chiwu and Zhongshuan. Although the representatives of the various countries who came to participate in this international conference were all here for Fairy Tale and had the same goal, their starting points were different. Some representatives wanted to fight for the strength of the cursed child for their country. Some wanted to get rid of the situation where they might be controlled by Fairyland in the future. Some wanted to take advantage of the situation to weaken Fairyland's influence on the world. Some country representatives were like Chiwu Zhongshuan, whose ultimate goal was world hegemony. They could not bear to see the threat of Fairyland and wanted to suppress or even eliminate it. In other words, although the representatives of these countries were all here for Fairy Tale, some were here for their countries, some for their rights, some for their own interests, and some for their own ambitions. Among them, people like Chiwu Zhongshuan, who believed that Fairy Tale was a huge threat and had their eyes on what they wanted, were undoubtedly the people who were most hostile to Fairy Tale. Isn't this the kind of person we need to pay attention to the most? Ryutaru scratched his head in annoyance. Really, it's one thing to be targeted by terrorist forces who can't see the truth, but I still have to deal with these ambitious guys. Just thinking about it makes me feel annoyed. But if Fairy Tale wants to save all of the cursed children, or even the entire world, she will have to face these people sooner or later. Mugging was very open-minded. We'll definitely have to deal with these people in the future. Riki-kun, you better be mentally prepared. I'm not good at dealing with these guys. Ryutaru quickly shook his head. Miss Mugging, if you want me to be your bodyguard, then I'll do my best. If you want me to feign civility with these guys, then forget it. That's why Riki-kun is really useless. Mugging said unhappily. Fortunately, I have Xiaoshu to give me ideas. Otherwise, I don't know how I'll survive these 3 years. Alright, I'm useless. Ryutaru spread his hands. Noah, on the other hand, did not hear the conversation between Mugging and Ryutaru at all as he was lost in his own thoughts. After a while, Noah raised his head and looked at Mugging. Mugging, can you get someone to keep an eye on Chiwu Zhongshuan? Get someone to keep an eye on Chiwu Zhongshuan? Mugging was stunned before she reacted. Why? Is there a problem with Chiwu Zhongshuan? There are many problems. He's so ambitious that it's already a problem for us. Noah shrugged. It's just that his dedication to world hegemony has made me somewhat suspicious. Suspicious? Ryotaro asked. Suspicious of what? Noah softly uttered a name, causing Mugging and Ryotaro to widen their eyes slightly. Are you sure? Mugging asked in surprise. Are you sure Chiwu Zhongshuan has something to do with that? Of course I'm not sure. Noah laughed. If I were sure, then I wouldn't have asked you to get someone to keep an eye on him. It's just my suspicion. You're suspicious? Ryotaro pondered. Now that you mention it, I think it's possible. Although there are ambitious guys everywhere, Chiwu Zhongshuan's desire for world domination is stronger than anyone else's. Mugging turned her gaze to the door as if she could see Chiwu Zhongshuan's back. She suddenly smiled. If that's the case, then let's get that guy to do it. That guy? Ryotaro was stunned at first, then he seemed to know who Mugging was talking about. Are you going to let him keep an eye on Chiwu Zhongshuan? After all, that guy has met Chiwu Zhongshuan many times, so he's more familiar with Chiwu Zhongshuan than anyone else. Mugging smiled. Let him keep an eye on Chiwu Zhongshuan. Hearing this, Noah could not hold back his curiosity and asked. Who's that guy? The person who used to take care of us. Mugging said mysteriously. When we left Tokyo and moved to Fairyland, he didn't come with us. Still, he's our guardian in name and has always kept in touch with us. After the existence of Fairyland was exposed a year ago, we've become closer than before. Sometimes, I'd even ask him for help with certain things, and now is the time to ask for his help. With that said, Mugging took out his phone and walked to the side to make a call. Watching Mugging like this, Ryotaro muttered wistfully. Come to think of it, it's been a long time since I've contacted him. Ryotaro's mutterings did not reach Noah's ears. That was because Noah was frowning and muttering. A year ago? It seems that a lot of things changed after Fairyland's existence was exposed a year ago. Not only was Fairy Tale completely pushed into the limelight, but the Tokyo region had also become an ally of Fairyland, and the relationships between various characters had also become clear. For example, Tina's sisters joined the Fairy Tale. Another example was when Zhuo Wei Ren was resurrected and Li Ching-yin reappeared. Furthermore, they were all standing opposite of Fairy Tale. The people around Noah, Mugging, Ryotaro, and the others seemed to be divided into two groups, either allies or enemies. If things continued to develop like this, the world structure would definitely become clear because of Fairyland's existence, and because of Fairy Tale's existence. But I've never had the patience to wait for things to develop slowly, Noah muttered. Let me just ignite a fire so that the fuses connected to all parts of the world will be burned out, but not even an explosion will occur. While Noah was muttering to himself, Mugging had already finished making the call. It's done. Mugging walked over and said. The matter has been handed down, and they have also agreed to this matter. Unless Zhongshuan Qi leaves Tokyo, he will be monitored 24 hours a day. Noah nodded and did not say anything else. After all, Zhongshuan Qi was only one of the people that needed to be watched. Noah's opponent was not just Zhongshuan Qi, but the representatives of all the countries in the world. In the following period of time, as Noah said before, all kinds of people came to the door, trying to find out something. Of course, in the face of such a cunning person like Noah, these people could only leave with a belly full of anger and dejectedly. Just like that, time passed little by little. Unknowingly, noon had quietly arrived. Chapter 2130. In the very center of the embassy, there is a very spacious conference room. This conference room, until recently, was used to exhibit the famous objects of the Tokyo area. It played the role of a museum, showing the essence of the Tokyo area to the ambassadors of foreign areas. It wasn't until the countries of the world proposed a meeting and the location was chosen in the Tokyo area that the Holy Sun temporarily renovated this hall into a conference room. At this moment, in the conference room, a round table was placed in the center, sitting in the middle of luxurious chairs. The door of the conference room was open, and 2 guards wearing the uniform of the Holy Residence Guard stood at the door. Representatives from all over the world were accompanied by guards to the conference room one by one, and only they entered by themselves. During the previous break, the representatives of all countries had already met each other. At this time, there was naturally no need for any greetings. After entering the conference room one by one, they directly sat down, and the seats began to be occupied one by one. After the appearance of protozoa, the world's population declined sharply, and most countries were completely destroyed by protozoa, disappearing in the long river of history. Under such circumstances, it is reasonable to say that the number of representatives of countries present should not be many. However, from the beginning, the number of representatives of countries has been increasing, occupying one seat after another. By the time there were only 2 seats left in the audience, the number of representatives of countries present was already close to 100 people. Why are there so many people? Could it be that all countries in the world sent multiple representatives? Of course not. In fact, if you think about it carefully, you will understand. Just like in the past, Japan is now divided into a total of 5 regions: Tokyo, Osaka, Sendai, Sapporo, and Bodo. The rest of the countries have suffered the same result as Japan, more or less divided into several regions. It is precisely because of this that in this world, the units of countries are not like before, basically divided by continents, but divided by regions. In other words, the Tokyo area is an independent country, the Osaka area is an independent country, and the rest of the areas are also divided into independent countries one after another, so the number of countries has not decreased by much. In view of this, the number of representatives from all over the world is so large. However, although the number is large, it doesn't give people a sense of noise. After all, the people present were either the heads of state or important people in power. None of them were ruffians and would not make a racket in such a formal occasion. Therefore, after taking their seats, every country's representatives just sat there quietly. Even if there were whispers from time to time, it would not spoil the solemn atmosphere of the scene. After an unknown period of time, the final main characters finally arrived. Under the watchful eyes of the guards, Noah and Seiko walked out from one end of the corridor, followed by Mugging and Rintaro. Together, they walked towards the door of the conference room. Before they even entered the conference room, Noah and the others could already see that the room was filled with representatives from various countries. The representatives in the conference room seemed to have noticed the arrival of Noah's group. They all turned their heads and looked at them. Their eyes were all focused on Noah, Seiko, Mugging, and Rintaro. Suddenly, other than Noah, Seiko, Mugging, and Rintaro's hearts tightened. Their expressions involuntarily became serious. There was still some distance between them and the conference room, but when they saw all the representatives sitting in the conference room and felt the gazes of those representatives, Seiko, Mugging, and Rintaro had the illusion that they were about to step into the mouth of a ferocious beast. Only Noah's expression did not change. His face was calm. However, Noah asked Seiko in a low voice. "The things I asked you to prepare, have you prepared them?" "I've prepared them." Seiko did not turn around. She was still looking forward. Her red lips moved slightly as she said worriedly. "But, can that avoid war?" Can it or not?" Noah smiled irresponsibly. "Just wait and see." With that, Noah did not hesitate. He quickened his pace and walked towards the conference room. Although Seiko still wanted to say something, looking at Noah's back, a surge of courage and trust emerged in his heart. He steadied himself and followed closely. Mugging and Rintaro did not hear the conversation between Noah and Seiko. They looked at each other and followed. When they reached the door, Rintaro stopped and watched as Noah, Seiko, and Mugging entered the conference room. Immediately, the 2 guards immediately stepped forward and slowly closed the wide door of the conference room. Bang! With a loud sound of the door closing, the entire conference room was completely sealed off. However, the heavy atmosphere in the air did not decrease. Instead, it increased. All the representatives looked at the arrival of Noah, Elysium, and Mugging. Their gazes changed, and they looked at each other. Everything was said in silence. Just like that, Noah and Seiko sat down in the remaining 2 seats. Only Mugging was left standing behind Noah. Looking at this scene, many of the representatives showed dissatisfaction. The importance of this international conference was self-evident. There was no need for further explanation. In order to avoid any accidents, the conference was conducted in a closed manner. Every country's representative had to go into battle alone. They were not even allowed to bring their guards with them. In the end, Noah brought someone with him. Was that not telling everyone that Noah was more special than everyone present, and even had a higher status? This way, the representatives of each country would naturally be dissatisfied. However, they were all smart people. They knew that this was not the time to denounce. That was because Mugging was not an ordinary guard. He was the acting president of Fairy Tale. Although after Noah's return, the biggest voice and decision-making power in Fairyland was Noah's, as Noah's spokesperson for the past 3 years, Mugging's existence had long been known by everyone. His reputation was comparable to the mysterious hermit. In other words, Mugging could also be a representative of Fairyland. Even so, it was equivalent to Fairyland sending 2 representatives. However, the international conference did not stipulate that a country could not send more than 1 representative, right? In this case, if they were to denounce, they would only end up with a few sarcastic remarks. It would not help the outcome at all. Thinking of this, even if they were dissatisfied, the representatives of each country did not say anything. Of course, many people thought that the reason Noah brought Mugging along was not because he lacked confidence, but because he was not in Fairyland for the past 3 years and did not understand the situation. If he were to attend this conference alone, he might be at a disadvantage. With this thought, many people began to think that the real troublesome one should be Mugging, and not Noah. Only some people knew that Noah was far more terrifying than Mugging. For example, Chiwu Zhongshuan. The opponent this time is not the brat from the Tentong family, but that terrifying cursed child Shelter. That was Chiwu Zhongshuan's thought. Just as the representatives of each country were secretly observing Noah and Mugging with various thoughts in their minds, Elysian's son stood up. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone here. Elysian's son bowed. Thank you all for gathering in Tokyo today and choosing us as the venue for this international conference. In the name of the ruler of Tokyo, I swear to you that I will ensure the fairness of this conference and maintain the order of the conference. I hope you can cooperate with me. After that, Elysian's son raised his head and said so. This conference has gathered all the countries in the world today. Almost all countries have sent representatives to participate in this conference. This is a grand event that has never happened since the beginning of the Protozoa War. Here, I sincerely hope that this international conference can promote exchanges between countries, speed up the connections and relationships between countries, and make humans more united, contributing to the eradication of the protozoa and the restoration of human territory. Elysian's son said these words in a sincere tone. Then, in the name of the ruler of Tokyo, Elysian's son, I declare. The first international conference officially begins. Chapter 2131. President Noah. President Noah. President Noah. When Seiji announced the start of the meeting, most of the representatives couldn't wait to speak, and they all spoke in Japanese. After all, they were representatives of various countries selected to participate in the international conference. In order to achieve their own goals in the conference, it was unlikely that the countries in the world would send someone who had to communicate through a translator as a representative. There was some risk involved in that. However, when the representatives of various countries were about to speak, Noah suddenly raised his hand. Everyone, I'm sorry. Noah interrupted the speech of all the representatives with a very calm sentence. Before the meeting begins, I want everyone to witness a big action initiated by Fairyland with me. With one sentence, all the representatives present were stunned. Ignoring the stunned representatives, Noah looked at Xing Tianzi and said to him, "Bring up the things you've prepared." What? Xing Tianzi was extremely surprised. Now? That's right. Noah looked straight at Xing Tianzi. Now. Got it. Xing Tianzi's face was full of confusion. He didn't know what Noah was going to do, but he still did as Noah said. He took out the communicator from his arms and said, "Bring up the things." As soon as Xing Tianzi's words fell, the door of the conference room opened. The moment the clear sound of the door opening rang out, all the representatives present turned their gazes towards the door. In the next second, all the representatives of the various countries saw it. 2 guards of the holy abode pushed a cart with a large LCD screen on it and came in from the door. Seeing this scene, all the representatives looked at each other in dismay. What are they going to do? Even Qiwu Zhongshuan in the crowd frowned. He stared at the LCD screen that was slowly pushed in by the guards and couldn't help but ask in a deep voice. "President Noah, Lord Xing Tianzi, what are you going to do?" "Don't worry, President Qi Wu," Noah said calmly. "You'll know later. Anyway, I won't disappoint you." Unfortunately, the more Noah said this, the more uneasy Zhongshuan felt. Because Qiwu Zhongshuan knew that the true master of Fairyland would never do something meaningless for no reason. When the international conference was announced, Noah was definitely not trying to mystify things by doing this. Therefore, Qiwu Zhongshuan had a feeling. Following this, the development of the entire international conference would most likely exceed the expectations of all the representatives present. With this thought in mind, Qiwu Zhongshuan suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and stared closely at the LCD screen. All the representatives present had their attention completely focused on the LCD screen, their expressions more or less carrying a trace of confusion and doubt. Just like that, the 2 guards pushed the screen to the front of the conference room, facing all the representatives. Only Noah had his back to the LCD screen. Then, the 2 guards bowed and retreated, closing the door of the conference room again. It was only then that Noah stood up, looked around at all the representatives present, and said, "Next, I'm going to show you an annihilation operation launched by Fairyland alone." An annihilation operation? The representatives were shocked. What does this mean? Could it be that Fairyland was preparing to attack a nation? Is this man going to show the power of Fairyland and use a reign of terror to make everyone here compromise? All of a sudden, all the representatives of the various countries were filled with fear. Noah, on the other hand, acted as if he did not see anything and spoke to Muggeng. "Muggeng, get ready." "Got it." Muggeng seemed a little surprised, clearly not knowing what Noah was planning. However, before the conference began, Noah did ask her to make some preparations. Therefore, when Noah spoke, Muggeng walked to the side of the LCD screen and started operating on a laptop next to the LCD screen. Clang! In the next second, the LCD screen lit up and showed an image. The scene that appeared on the screen was a forest. Looking at the forest on the screen, the expressions of many of the representatives present changed abruptly. The demonic forest? The demonic forest. This name was familiar to all humans. This was especially true for those of the older generation who had experienced the first Protogut animal war. This name was enough to make them turn pale in fear. Because, as the name suggests, it was one of the 3 great demonic realms in the world today. In this era where the protozoans appeared and most of the human land was occupied by them, there were 3 places that were classified as the most dangerous regions by the world. In those 3 regions, the most terrifying protozoans in the world lived. Some of them were occupied by a large number of protozoans, treating them as territories and territories. Some of them were hibernating protozoans of the highest level, which were stage V zodiac protozoans. Even other protozoans did not dare to step into them. Therefore, these 3 regions were called the demonic realms by humans. They were the demonic forest, the demonic canyon, and the demonic sea region. If one day, humans had the ability to attack the 3 great demonic realms, it would mean that the protozoans were about to be wiped out, and the human race would regain its past glory. Therefore, the ultimate goal of humans was to trample the 3 great demonic realms. At this moment, the forest shown on the LCD screen was one of the 3 great demonic realms, the demonic forest. In there lived a group of the highest level protozoans in the world. The protozoans in this forest were at least stage 3 protozoans. Chapter 2132. Seeing the cursed children disembarking from the military helicopter one after another and lining up neatly, facing the demonic forest, all the country representatives in the conference room widened their eyes slightly. Initiator of the IP ranking number 3, Think Tank. Initiator of the IP ranking number 4, Pluto. Initiator of the IP ranking number 6, Multiple Eyes. Initiator of the IP ranking number 7, Tornado. Initiator of the IP ranking number 9, Small Annihilation. Initiator of the IP ranking number 10, Dive into the Sea. One by one, the nicknames of the initiators that almost resounded throughout the world appeared in the conference room amidst the shocked voices of the country representatives. Even Mugang and the Holy Son of Heaven stared blankly at the familiar faces of the girls at the front of the neatly arranged initiator group on the LCD screen and fell into shock. After all, among them, even Xia Shi and Yan Zhu were among them, and their images were clearly reflected on the screen. Other than Xia Shi and Yan Zhu, who were among the top 10 initiators in the IP ranking, in the group formed purely by the cursed children, the remaining initiators were also very famous. Among them, there was no lack of initiators in the top 100 IP ranking. As such, how could the representatives of the various countries not recognize these young ladies? As for Mugang, he was even more familiar with these girls. As the acting president of Fairy Tail, Mugang could clearly tell everyone that the children in that group were all the top initiators in Fairy Tail. Just by the IP ranking alone, there was not a single one of them who was not in the top 1,000. And these initiators were all gathered in front of the demonic forest, one of the 3 demonic realms in the world, and their numbers were definitely above 500. In other words, other than the initiators and the top 1,000 initiators, the highest combat power in Fairyland was all gathered together. They were led by a girl. Looking at the girl standing at the front of the group, her dress fluttering in the wind, her silver blonde hair rippling, and her eyes turning into a cold scarlet color, the representatives of the countries present were almost speechless. The initiator of the first IP ranking, Black Wind. Tina was the one who led the initiators of Fairy Tail in the top 1,000. What's going on? Have all the initiators in Fairy Village gathered in the demonic forest? What are you planning to do? All the representatives of the various countries were in an uproar. Noah. Mugang and the Elysian son of Sage also spoke to Noah, their faces full of shock and confusion. In response, Noah only gave the two of them a reassuring look, but the words he said made the crowd even noisier. As all of you can see, the target of our annihilation operation this time is the demonic forest. When they heard this, all the representatives had only one thought in their minds. Ridiculous. It was so absurd that it made people speechless. Guild leader Noah. After a moment of silence, Chiwu Zhongshuan turned to look at Noah. Do you know what you're saying? What? Noah said without batting an eyelid. Does President Chiwu think this is unrealistic? Isn't that a matter of course? Chiwu Zhongshuan said with either pity or sarcasm. If the 3 great demonic realms were so easy to annihilate, humans would have reclaimed all their lands and wiped out all the protozoa. Why wait until now? Following Chiwu Zhongshuan's words, the representatives of the various countries present spoke one after another. Just as President Chiwu said, humans currently do not have the ability to invade the 3 great demonic realms. Take the demonic forest for example. Even if we don't count the protozoa, they are at least stage 3 beings. If we only count the level of their regenerative ability, that is not something we can overcome with rhenium metal. It would be fine if there were only a dozen or 20 of those protozoa, but in the demonic forest, there are thousands of them. Although Fairy Village's combat power is astonishing, it is impossible to annihilate the demonic forest at this stage. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. That was the voice of the representatives of the various countries. It was not just the representatives of the various countries, even Mugang and the Holy Son agreed with that statement. Although Fairy Village's lineup was astonishing, it was only a part of the current world. The three great demonic realms, on the other hand, were rated as dangerous places that would be difficult to conquer even if all the forces of the current world were gathered. After all, the protozoa there were not only extremely high levels, but also extraordinary levels of regenerative ability, making them very difficult to annihilate. No matter how powerful the initiators were, if they did not have the means to kill the protozoa, there was nothing they could do. That was proven by Noah's battle with Maxwell in the box. However, now, Noah wanted the hundreds of initiators in Fairy Village to conquer such a dangerous place? Impossible. Apart from Noah, that was what everyone present thought. At that moment, the representatives of the various countries had completely forgotten the initial purpose of this meeting. All of them were discussing and shaking their heads in denial. Noah. Mugang and the Holy Sun turned their worried gazes to Noah. However, Noah's expression did not change. Since that's what everyone thinks, why not waste some time and watch Fairy Village's spontaneous battle of annihilation? Noah chuckled. Alright, it's time to begin. With that, Noah turned around and looked at the LCD screen behind him. The representatives of the various countries present looked at each other before turning their gazes to the LCD screen. At the same time, before the demonic forest, the initiators of Fairy Village who had finished lining up all raised the weapons in their hands. With Tina's command, all of the initiators of Fairy Village let out a battle cry and surged into the demonic forest without hesitation. Moreover, their speed was shockingly fast. The distance of several hundred meters was reduced to 0 in the blink of an eye. Then, the initiators dashed into the demonic forest like agile cheetahs, leaping back and forth between trees, ground, and rock walls as they charged into the depths of the forest. Roar, 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 roar. As if sensing the intruders, roars and howls like a tidal wave echoed from every corner of the demonic forest. In the next second, a gigantic creature with an extremely strange appearance appeared in front of the forest. It was as if dozens of different animals had been forcefully blended together, charging at them violently. A Stage 4 protozoan. In the meeting room, a country representative shouted out the protozoan's level. As soon as they entered the forest, the initiators of Fairy Village were faced with a Stage 4 protozoan. The gigantic protozoan roared as it crashed through one tree after another, trampling on the ground as it charged forward like a ferocious beast. Against the Stage 4 protozoan that was charging at them in a grand manner, none of the initiators of Fairy Village showed any fear. Then, one of them charged out. Hiya! Dressed in a light one-piece dress and a jacket, Yenju shot through the air like a flash of light. With a clear cry, she instantly arrived in front of the charging primitive gut animals. Then, a kick as quick as lightning was unleashed on Yenju's foot. Bang! A heavy, muffled explosion resounded. The powerful kick unleashed from Yenju's feet directly blasted the charging protozoa into pieces, turning it into a pile of minced meat that fell to the ground. After the minced meat wriggled a few times on the ground, it instantly became motionless. Yenju, who landed on the ground, did not even look at the minced meat on the ground. Instead, she met up with the party that was advancing without stopping and continued to advance into the depths of the forest. The stench of blood filled the entire forest. Roar, 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 roar. Roar, 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 roar. Woo! As if the entire demonic forest was in a complete riot, the cries of the protozoan echoed everywhere. Chapter 2133. Rumble. The ground of the forest began to shake and shake. Bam, 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 bam. The sound of trees being smashed into pieces could also be heard. Around the initiators who were moving into the depths of the demonic forest, gigantic protozoa were roaring and roaring as they knocked down trees along the way. Like sharks that had caught the scent of blood, they surged toward the initiators. Not long after, the gigantic protozoa had knocked away the trees that were blocking their way and leaped out from every direction. Their eyes flashed with a ferocious glint as they opened their mouths filled with fangs and saliva at the initiators before them and pounced. In just an instant, hundreds of Fairyland initiators were surrounded by dozens of protozoa. Moreover, those protozoa were all at least at stage 3 level, with some of them even at stage 4 level. Their gigantic size was very intimidating. Even so, there was not a hint of fear on the faces of the initiators from Fairyland. Their advancing footsteps did not pause at all, and merely raised the weapons in their hands to meet the army of primitive animals that were encircling them. Roar, 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 roar. The monster's roar shook the air. Hey-ah! The girls' cries echoed all around. The cursed children with weapons in hand faced the army of protozoa directly, clashing head-on with them. Bam, 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 bam. The initiators who were wielding guns pulled the triggers of their weapons, causing the muzzles to burst into blazing flames. The bullets that blanketed the sky were unleashed at the protozoa around them, landing on the gigantic protozoa one after another. The higher the stage of the protozoa, the larger its size would be. In order to support its gigantic body, the higher the stage of the protozoa, the harder its skin would be to penetrate. The protozoa in the demonic forest were at least stage 3 beings. Naturally, they were gigantic in size and had extremely tough skin. To break through the protozoa's skin, if one were to use firearms and ammunition, the firepower must not be weak. Therefore, every bullet fired at the protozoa around them was as powerful as a shot from an anti-tank sniper rifle. In an instant, powerful bullets tore through the skin of the protozoa one after another, causing their flesh and blood to splatter everywhere as they roared in pain. And at that moment, the initiator of the melee battle rushed forward, using the weapons in his hands to strike thunderously at the protozoa. All of a sudden, the protozoa that were at least stage 3 fell one after another under the initiators. Not a single one of them remained intact. They were either blasted apart or minced into a pile of minced meat. Then, just like the protozoa from before, the minced meat wriggled on the ground for a while before stopping altogether, turning into a pile of carcass remains. The initiators, led by Tina, only took 30 seconds to take care of this group of primitive animals. 30 seconds later, the hundreds of initiators finished off all the protozoa that surrounded them. Like agile cheetahs, they continued to leap between the trees and marched forward. His footsteps did not stop at all. Wow! In the conference room, the representatives of each country who saw this scene on the LCD screen all stood up abruptly with shocked expressions on their faces. How is this possible? An army of protozoa that were at least stage 3 or above was taken care of just like that? They didn't regenerate? Moreover, aren't the initiators' abilities too high? It's one thing for the tornado to be able to take care of the stage 4 protozoa in one hit. After all, it's the 7th IP ranking. But how come the initiators who are only ranked within the top 1000 have such powerful combat strength? At this moment, all the representatives of each country were shocked. There were two reasons. One was that the protozoa did not regenerate. The protozoa in the demonic forest were famous for their extremely high regenerative abilities. Basically, they were all at least level 2 regenerative abilities and could ignore the level of ordinary machine-made weapons. However, from the beginning, none of the dozens of protozoa showed that level of regenerative ability and were defeated in an instant. Moreover, the initiators displayed on the LCD screen were also astonishingly powerful. Be it the top 10 initiators, the top 100 initiators, or the top 1000 initiators, all of them seemed to have received an astonishing amount of combat power at this moment. Be it the stage 3 or 4 protozoa, all of them were dealt with in an instant. This group of initiators with amazing abilities swept through the army in the forest that was regarded as the demonic forest without stopping. Facing the huge protozoa that came from all directions crashing through trees, rock walls, and caves, they fearlessly raised their weapons and faced them head-on. Displaying their terrifying combat strength, they killed the protozoa one after another on the spot. It was as if they had entered a place where no one could stop them. Impossible. Some of the representatives of each country couldn't help but use their own country's language. Gulp. The representatives of the other countries couldn't help but gulp as they watched the performance of the group of initiators with amazing combat strength on the LCD screen. Huff. Huff. Chiwu Zhongshuan tried desperately to calm himself down, but his breathing became more and more rapid. On the other hand, Mu Gung and Xing Tianzi were both surprised and delighted. The group of initiators belonging to Fairy Tale had shocked the representatives from all over the world. In front of the representatives of these countries, the corners of Noah's mouth slowly curled up, and he finally spoke. According to the reconnaissance of Fairyland's artificial satellite, apart from those stage 1 and 2 insignificant characters who accidentally entered the forest from the outside, there are a total of 12,573 stage 3 and stage 4 protozoa that are known for their high level of regenerative ability. On the other hand, we sense 648 initiators, a difference of about 21. And with this annihilation speed, even if we include the time for searching, traveling, resting, and eating, a day is more than enough to clear out the entire demonic forest. Noah looked around at all the representatives of the countries present, his voice resounding throughout the entire place. I wonder if everyone still doubts whether Fairyland's annihilation operation will succeed? Noah's words did not draw any response from anyone. All the representatives of the countries present were so shocked that they could not react at all. In the end, Chiwu Zhongshuan was the only one who stared at the initiator team on the LCD screen. His voice was hoarse. How? How did you do it? Upon hearing that, Noah glanced at Chiwu Zhongshuan and curled his lips into a smile. What are you referring to, President Chiwu? Don't play dumb. Chiwu Zhongshuan slammed the table in excitement. Why didn't the protozoa in the demonic forest regenerate? Since when did the initiators of Fairyland become so powerful? The combat ability displayed by each initiator is enough to rank in the top 10 of the IP ranking, right? Don't tell me you're not the one behind this. Why would President Chiwu think that I'm the one behind this? Noah asked innocently. Can't it be that the children in my guild have been hiding their true strength and are finally showing their true strength now? Nonsense. Chiwu Zhongshuan retorted without hesitation. According to the investigation, other than those in the top 10 of the IP ranking, the rest of the initiators in Fairyland have never shown this level of ability before. If they were hiding their true strength, with so many of them, 1 or 2 of them should have been exposed long ago. Is that so? The innocence on Noah's face disappeared and was replaced by a half-smile. Then I'm sorry to trouble you, President Chiwu, to investigate the children in our guild so thoroughly. Well. Chiwu Zhongshuan's eyelids twitched when he realized that he had said something stupid. However, Noah no longer paid attention to Chiwu Zhongshuan. He turned around and went to the laptop next to the LCD screen and started operating it. The next moment, the image on the screen began to expand, showing the waists of the children who were killing in the forest. It was only then that all the country representatives noticed. On the waists of those children were all wearing a small device. Chapter 2134. What? What is that? Looking at the small device displayed on the screen, all the representatives present had a look of disbelief. Because none of the representatives present could recognize the small device pinned to the waists of the initiators. It was as small as a mobile phone. It was bright red all over. There was a bright gemstone embedded in the middle. And that gemstone was emitting light at this time, sprinkling a somewhat mystical color. The cursed children, who were the initiators of the attack on the demonic forest, were all wearing such a small device. Noah pointed at the small device on the screen and said to everyone present. You can call it an artificial artifact. An artificial artifact? The representatives of each country said in a somewhat deranged voice. An artificial artifact? Chiwu Zhongshuan muttered in a low voice. An artificial artifact? Mugung's face was full of confusion. An artificial artifact? Elysian stared at the small device displayed on the screen, his slender hands slowly clenched. Looking at everyone's confused expression, Noah spread his hands and said so. You can treat this as one of my gains from disappearing for 3 years. Hearing that, everyone reacted. Gains from disappearing for 3 years? Chiwu Zhongshuan said with some uncertainty. In other words, this device called an artificial artifact is the reason why the initiators of Fairyland's ability became so amazing? That's right. Noah admitted frankly. The effect of this artificial artifact is very simple, which is to increase the activity of the protozoan virus in the cursed children's body to the limit, reaching the critical point. If the initiators who have not reached the growth limit wear this artificial artifact, then during the period when the artifact is in effect, their ability will be increased to the limit of growth. Noah revealed a shocking fact. And if the person wearing it is the initiator who has reached the growth limit, then during the period when the artifact is in effect, their ability will break through the growth limit. Break through the growth limit? The expressions of the representatives changed. Then doesn't that mean? Mugeng, Elysian, and Chiwu Zhongshuan were all shocked. It seems that all of you have thought of it. Noah suddenly smiled. Yes, it can help the initiator reach the state of domain and obtain the ability that is comparable to the high-ranking initiators. Although it can only be achieved during the period when the artifact is in effect, at least during this period of time, every initiator who reaches the limit of growth will obtain great power. Noah operated the laptop again and restored the image. On the screen, hundreds of Fairyland's initiators charged into the demonic forest as if they had entered no man's land, advancing at an astonishing speed. The scene of him effortlessly killing one protozoa after another was imprinted in everyone's eyes once again. The children who are attacking the demonic forest are all wearing artificial artifacts, and they are all initiators who have reached the limit of growth. Noah's voice clearly entered everyone's ears. In other words, what you are seeing now is a total of 648 initiators who have reached the realm of domain and have surpassed the limit. All of them are strong enough to be ranked in the top 10 of the IP rankings. They have formed a team to attack the demonic forest. A total of 648 initiators who had reached the realm of domain collectively attacking. At a time when a single initiator who had reached the realm of domain had the ability to change the world's military structure, how terrifying would the power of a total of 648 initiators who had reached the realm of domain collectively working together be? This fact was displayed in front of all the representatives of the countries in the world. Even if an initiator who has reached the realm of domain wears an artificial artifact, the activity of the protozoa virus in the body will be raised to an extremely high level. The power obtained will definitely be more powerful than a stage V protozoa. Noah's voice rang out powerfully. And the protozoa virus that has reached the limit will also trigger a kind of field that can affect the activation of the protozoa virus in other individuals. Unless they also have an artificial artifact that can cancel each other out, no matter if the target is a cursed child or a protozoa, they will not be able to trigger the regenerative ability. This way, when the host completely dies, the parasitic protozoa virus would naturally die along with it, not allowing the host to regenerate. What did this mean? That is to say. The son of the sage said with some difficulty. This artificial artifact can replace the T-metal? Not only the T-metal, it can even replace the T-metal. Noah dropped such a bombshell. With it, even if humans lose the T, they can still resist the protozoa. At this moment, all the representatives of the countries widened their eyes and trembled. Hope. Mugeng muttered. Hope that they can completely defeat the protozoa. Yes. This was the hope that humans could completely defeat the protozoa. One had to know that although the T could suppress the regeneration of the protozoa, this metal was limited and could only be mined in volcanic areas. At present, all the countries in the world had already developed a sense of crisis. That was the gradual decrease of the T-metal. If one day, the T-metal was completely used up, then humans would no longer have the means to fight against the protozoa. Even the giant stone tablet that protected the last pure land of humans was made of T. Therefore, once the T-metal disappeared, then humans would truly perish. However, the artificial artifact in front of them brought new hope. If this artificial artifact could really replace the T-metal and completely suppress the regeneration of the protozoa, it could even suppress the level 2 regeneration ability that could ignore the T-metal. It could even replace the T-metal and suppress the strongest level 5 regeneration ability. Then, it would no longer be a dream for humans to defeat the protozoa. Not to mention, it could also increase the power of the initiators and give birth to batches of initiators who could break through the growth limit and reach the domain realm. With this power, hundreds of people could conquer one of the 3 great demon realms in the world. If it continued to increase, then defeating all the protozoa would no longer be a dream? Thinking of this, not to mention mugging, even the representatives of the countries were trembling with excitement. The son of the sage, who longed for peace, was almost suffocating and almost shed tears. However, at this moment, Noah suddenly poured a basin of cold water on them. Unfortunately, the artificial artifact increased the activity of the protozoa virus to the point of breaking through the growth limit. That will also increase the erosion rate of the protozoa virus in the cursed child's body to the limit. Noah tapped on the laptop in front of him and said calmly, "According to my calculations, if a cursed child who has reached the growth limit uses the artificial artifact, then within 10 minutes, the erosion rate of the protozoa virus in his body will increase to more than 50% and he will become a protozoa." That one sentence woke everyone up from their excitement. How? How could this be? The son of the sage's expression changed abruptly. Doesn't that mean that the use of this artificial artifact has to be exchanged with the lives of the cursed children? Of course not. Noah smiled and waved his hand. That's only for the average cursed child. Fairyland has a preparation that can completely suppress the protozoa virus. Therefore, for us, this artificial artifact can be used in actual combat. Hearing that, Mugging and the son of the sage both breathed a sigh of relief and fell back into surprise. Only the representatives of the country seemed to have their hearts chilled and their expressions turned extremely ugly. Especially Chi Wuzongxuan, who seemed to have thought of something and secretly cursed in his heart. According to what Noah said, then, the following development, would it not be, Fairyland is the only one who could produce the antidote, just as the cursed children who have joined Fairyland are the only ones who could use artificial divine artifacts. As long as the cursed children are willing to join Fairyland, saving the world and defeating the protozoa is just around the corner. As expected, Noah calmly said something in front of everyone that caused the expressions of all the representatives to change drastically. Therefore, to save the world and humanity, I hereby make a request. I hope that all countries in the world can transfer all the cursed children within their borders to Fairyland and contribute to saving humanity. As he said that, Noah had a thought-provoking smile on his face as he looked at the representatives whose expressions changed abruptly. This is for all of humanity. You won't refuse, right? Chapter 2135. In a split second, the entire conference room that was still noisy a second ago seemed to have been frozen into ice. All sound disappeared without a trace, and even the atmosphere in the air was chilled. Along with it, the hearts of the representatives froze into ice as well. It was only at this moment that all the representatives present knew why Noah would display the power of the fairy tale at the conference, presenting the annihilation operation planned by Fairyland before everyone's eyes. Noah's actions were for one thing. And that was to make all countries who intended to reclaim the cursed children go for wool and come home shorn. You. The representatives looked at Noah in disbelief. Chi Wuzongxuan felt his vision darken as he felt a sense of dizziness. Initially, the ultimate goal of this international conference, regardless of which country it was to make Noah spit out all the cursed children that were transferred to Fairyland from all over the world despite having different starting points. But now, Noah was giving them a taste of their own medicine. In turn, with the announcement of an annihilation operation and an artificial divine artifact, he had all the countries send the remaining cursed children in their own country to Fairyland. Could all the countries in the world agree to such a thing? Of course not. They were here to weaken Fairyland's power in the first place, so how could they weaken their own power and strengthen Fairyland's? Looking at the shocked and enraged faces of the representatives, Noah's expression became sarcastic. I know how you feel, but this can't be helped. Now, humanity is being threatened by the primitive animals and has reached a point where survival is difficult. If we want to break the deadlock, we can only rely on the artificial divine artifact. This is an indisputable fact. Don't you want to save all of humanity? Don't want to save all of humanity? Most of the representatives of the various countries present did not have such thoughts in mind. Because they only wanted to save their own country. Who would be selfless enough to save all of humanity? However, could the representatives of the various countries present say this out loud? Once they did, they would instantly lose the support of the people in their country and be ousted from office. You are twisting words and forcing logic. One of the representatives couldn't help but shout. Even if the artifact could save all of humanity, we don't have to move every cursed child in our country to fairyland, do we? If you say so, then it's a little wrong. Noah spread his hands. An artificial artifact can greatly enhance the abilities of the cursed child. Every cursed child who obtains an artificial artifact can at least become a powerhouse in the top 500 IP rankings. With such strength, if all of them were to gather, they would definitely be able to defeat all the protozoa. If that's the case, Fairyland should announce the method of crafting artificial divine artifacts, and let every country in the world develop artificial divine artifacts. Wouldn't that be more efficient? Another country's representative said with a trembling voice. Fairyland is weak in the end. If we all work together, we can create more artificial divine artifacts and use them on the cursed children to have a greater chance of banishing the primitive animals. It's a pity that I've just informed everyone of the artifact's side effect. Only Fairyland has the means to eliminate that side effect with the incubation agent, and the only mother that can multiply the incubation agent is the one in Fairyland. Noah reminded as if he was being kind. Even if Fairyland provides the incubation agent to every country in the world, in terms of efficiency alone, instead of shipping it to every country in the world, why not gather the cursed children in Fairyland and use them directly? Wouldn't that be better? We know that it's inefficient, but we can't put the responsibility of saving all of humanity on Fairyland's shoulders, can we? Another country's representative spoke with some difficulty. We would like to do our part as well. I understand everyone's intentions. Noah smiled abruptly. Of course, we at Fairyland would not overestimate ourselves and think that we could save all of humanity alone. It's fortunate that Fairy Tale, which I lead as the center of Fairyland, is a non-governmental organization that faces the world. We would still send the cursed children to every country in the world in the form of commissions, and when the time comes, every country would just have to pay the corresponding remuneration, which could be used to produce incubation agents and artificial divine artifacts. That way, everyone would be satisfied. Satisfied? Satisfied, my foot. Not only would they have to send the remaining cursed children to Fairyland for free, they would have to pay to hire them if there was a need for them in the future. Was there anything in this world that was more ridiculous than that? At that very moment, every country's representative was cursing inwardly, no matter how cultured they were. Only Noah's face was still all smiles. Or are you saying that you don't want to do your part to save all of humanity? Noah mentioned, intentionally or otherwise. If that's the case, I believe that the citizens of your countries would be very dissatisfied, and that wouldn't do any good for you. The truth was just that cruel. The representatives of every country thought that they had the upper hand in this international conference, and that they would definitely have Noah under their thumb with the excuse of Fairyland illegally transferring the cursed children within their own borders. However, with Noah stirring things up, things changed completely. If Noah were to announce the existence of the artificial divine artifacts, every human in the world would fall into a frenzy. In order to survive, every citizen of every country would choose to support Fairyland. Moreover, the culture of hatred and rejection of the cursed children had long been ingrained in the hearts of every country's citizens. Every human would certainly wish for all the cursed children in their own countries to disappear, and get as far away as possible. That way, if the rulers of every country in the world still did not agree to this matter, then before the citizens of the country object and protest, these rulers would have to wait until they were replaced with a group of politicians who were willing to cooperate with Fairyland. However, in this day and age, there should still be many countries whose rulers are dictators who can rule by terror and completely ignore the voice of the people. Noah changed the topic and turned to look at Chiwu Zhongshuan. He said this with a smile that was not a smile. We can't agree with such people who ignore the will of the people and don't want to contribute to the human race, and only care about their own private rights. Therefore, if there really is such a dictator, I think that every country in the world should unite, march into that country's territory, and eradicate such vermin. Don't you think so, President Chiwu? Chiwu Zhongshuan's face turned extremely pale in an instant. The faces of every country's representative present also turned a little pale, and dispirited emotions welled up in their hearts. Lost. This time, it was a complete loss. From the moment Noah announced the artificial artifact, every country in the world was doomed to fail, and even had to turn around and help Fairyland. Because the citizens of every country in the world would stand on Fairyland's side. Stand on Noah's side. Once, in order to wipe out the entire Tendo family, Noah used the dark side in the hearts of the people in the Tokyo area, and succeeded in achieving his goal. And this time, Noah no longer used the dark side of the people in a small Tokyo area, but the dark side of all humans in the world. The desire to survive was aroused for one's own survival. The sense of belonging for the glory of the past. The hatred that burst out in order to defeat the monster horde. These emotions would be used by Noah, and become the stepping stone to achieve the entire Fairyland, and to oppress all countries in the world. In the face of these, every country in the world had no other choice. It seems that everyone has made a decision. Looking at the ashen faces of every country's representative present, Noah withdrew his artificial smile, and his face returned to calmness. Now, I have to tell everyone here something. Sins committed by the heavens can be forgiven, but sins committed by oneself are the hardest to bear. These are all your own doing. Noah's gaze swept across the faces of every country's representative. No matter what your purpose is, your actions are sacrificing the happiness of those children. Since you can't give the children a smile in Fairyland, then don't even think about the children. With that, Noah ignored the reactions of every country's representative present, and spoke plainly to the Holy Sun beside him. Lord Holy Sun, please announce the contents of today's meeting to the world, and spread the video of Fairyland breaching the demonic forest, and tell all humans, who is the one who can save them. Mugging, when you go back, be prepared to receive the cursed children from every country in the world. Noah threw out those words directly. If any country is unwilling to contribute to all of humanity, you know what to do. What else could be done? Of course, it was to make it known to the world, and let them suffer. Mugging and the Holy Sun both suppressed the excitement in their hearts, and nodded. Seeing this, every country's representative present understood. Things could no longer be undone. There's nothing else you want to say, right? Noah said indifferently. If that's the case, this international conference will be adjourned. With that, Noah turned around, and led Mugging and the Holy Sun out of the conference room. Only a group of countries' representatives were left standing in place, unable to recover for a long time. Chapter 2136. The world would walk towards the light because of Noah alone. In order to increase his chances of winning, Noah had the idea of creating an artificial artifact. Of course, we're only collecting the cursed children in the world. Perhaps there will be new cursed children born in other countries in the future. I'm not the one who created the artificial artifact, it's Athena. Moreover, Aster, Orpheus, and Lilith also contributed a lot. It was because of this that Muroto Kino believed that Noah could change this hopeless world. Immediately, Noah had Hina, Xiaoshi, and Yen Zhu rush back to Fairyland to gather people and spread the news of the annihilation operation in the demonic forest. Even Rentaro patted Noah's shoulder, his heart filled with emotions. When the protozoa were defeated and humans were released from their twisted hearts, perhaps they would be completely divided into two types of people. So, the reason you disappeared for 3 years was to prepare for the artificial artifact? In order to prevent the same thing from happening to the children in the world, it seems that we have to investigate the household records of every country in the world. We can't leave out a single child. God knows how long it would take to recover to its peak. This world was completely distorted after the protogut animals appeared. As the strongest sword spirit, Aster could use a certain degree of steel elven magic. He was quite knowledgeable about the weapon refinement of steel elven magic. After Athena perfected the design of the artificial artifact, he used elven magic to refine the outer shell. In the corridor of the embassy, Rentaro learned about the whole process and result of the meeting from Mugging, and said to Noah in surprise and joy. After all, unlike in the past, the current fairy tale could go up against countries all over the world at any time. The first type was those who were liberated from their hatred and were enlightened. They no longer stuck to the past and chose to move towards the future. In fact, Noah had already asked Athena to design an artificial artifact for the cursed children. Therefore, Noah did not take credit at all and only explained to Rentaro. Noah, who didn't know what Seiji, Mugging, and Rentaro were thinking, was still immersed in his own thoughts. This was the only thing that could be confirmed. Could it be that the child is the same as Xiaoshi and has intelligent protozoan genes in his body? Orpheus and Lilith were known as the dragon gods with unlimited power. Both of them gave their own snakes to the artificial artifacts at the moment when the artificial artifacts were formed, so that the artificial artifacts could gain power and produce amazing effects. Some countries don't even register their cursed children, Rentaro said. Even in terms of strength, in this world, Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith were unbeatable existences. As for Athena, with the help of Aster, Orpheus, and Lilith, she created hundreds of artificial artifacts overnight. Who would have thought? It was impossible for Athena to create another divine tool of annihilation with such a level of mastery over the artifact. Noah nodded and gently stroked the guild emblem on the back of his hand. Noah's words made the three of them come to a realization. For this reason, Athena even conducted research on artificial artifacts for a period of time. It wasn't until Noah obtained the specific information of that domain from Tina that Athena came up with an idea. She gradually perfected the artificial artifact that could enhance the abilities of the cursed child. Athena is indeed very smart, and can even be called wise. Noah did not confirm Mugging's words and only said this. Moreover, instead of dealing with them one by one, it was better to let them kneel down. When the artificial artifacts worn by Hina and the others were activated, the gemstones embedded in them were formed by Orpheus and Lilith's snakes. Noah could even let the four girls go to those countries that were looking for trouble. It would only take a day for the world to be left with only two independent countries, Fairyland and the Tokyo area. Of course, at that time, Noah did not intend to disclose the function of the artificial artifact to achieve the goal of making all the countries in the world obediently hand over all the cursed children. He simply wanted to increase the strength of fairy tale. That was, if they followed this man, it would definitely not be a mistake. It was because of the help of Aster, Orpheus, and Lilith that Athena was able to quickly create hundreds of artificial artifacts overnight. The method of creating artificial artifacts was not developed by Noah, but by Asashal's experimental results. After that, Noah had a conversation with the Holy Sun in the Holy Abode and suddenly thought of the existence of artificial artifacts, which led to a series of ideas. Whether it is Aster, Athena, Orpheus, or Lilith, their abilities are beyond your imagination. Don't underestimate these children. The Holy Sun, Mugging, and Rentaro, who did not know about this, were a little surprised. Under such circumstances, the appearance of the children who inherited the protozoan virus became the victims of this distortion. After the cursed children of the world were gathered in Fairyland, these children would be reborn. Many people's hearts became tired, distorted, and even deformed under the direct pressure of life and death. Chapter 2137. Bang! In the dimly lit war room, an iron fist made of pure metal slammed heavily into the wall. With a loud explosion, the sturdy wall was directly smashed into smithereens. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! The black-robed bodyguard Joren kept throwing punches, smashing the wall in front of him over and over again until it was shattered. Debris and gravel flew everywhere, and even a large amount of dust was raised, filling the entire war room. Without a doubt, the actions of the black-robed bodyguard were not smart at all. As an assassin who could only hide in the dark, the black-robed bodyguard's actions were completely an act of venting his anger. It would only attract the attention of others. Other than that, there was no other benefit. However, the other people present did not stop the black-robed bodyguard at all. Leech Benet Jr. was still sitting in the corner, hugging his sword, as if he was in a dream, and kept muttering something. Li Qingyin leaned against the wall on the other side, with his head lowered. Because he was wearing a mask, his expression could not be seen at all. The remaining black-robed man, who was called Sir, was still sitting in front of the surveillance screens in the war room. His whole body was covered in a black robe, so naturally, his expression could not be seen clearly. However, from his slightly clenched hands, it could be seen that this top operative of the Five Xiang Association was also unable to calm down in his heart. Noah Dole. His voice was very gloomy. I still underestimated you. Just 3 minutes ago, His Excellency, Li Qingyin, and the black-robed bodyguard all received reliable news, and learned about the process and results of the international conference that was being held in the embassy. But this news shocked the three of them at the same time. After the shock, they were furious. Soon, all the cursed children in the world will become members of Fairyland. His fist clenched tighter and tighter. That's not all, the most important thing is that artificial artifact, that is simply the nightmare of the Five Xiang Association. As a mysterious organization whose ultimate goal was world hegemony, His Excellency knew what the Five Xiang Association, that he belonged to relied on. One was a mechanized soldier. Even so, while the mechanical soldiers were powerful, the cost to modify each one was very high. There were not many of them even in the Five Xiang Association, and none of them were comparable to the top 10 initiators in the IP ranking, and were simply no match for the 648 initiators in Fairyland who had reached the domain level. One was a protogut animal. In order to seize the world's hegemony, in fact, within the Wuxiang Association, from a long time ago, they had been cultivating primitive animals. Before this protozoan was born, it would be injected with drugs when it was still a virus. Only after it was cultivated would it be able to drive it. Furthermore, in order to achieve their goal of using protozoa to eliminate all rebellious countries, one of the requirements when cultivating these protozoa was to make them immune to the effects of Pyrenees. Not long ago, the long-necked dragon used by the terrorists of the Five Xiang Association to attack Magan was one of them. Noah and the others did not know that the reason why the long-necked dragon could ignore the qi was not because of its high level of regeneration, but because it was an experimental subject that was bred to be immune to the qi in order to achieve this effect. His Excellency knew how much effort the Five Xiang Association, that he belonged to, had put in. However, all of this, in front of Noah's artificial artifact, would be reduced to nothing. Because, even if it did not rely on qi metal, the artificial artifact could release a stance that counteracted the regeneration ability of the protozoan, making it possible for anyone to eliminate the protozoan. It's just like fate. Li Qingyin laughed out loud in self-mockery. That man is indeed the biggest enemy that threatens us in the end. So, didn't I say? Bodyguard Zhua turned around angrily and shouted loudly. When that guy was wandering on the streets yesterday, we should have gotten rid of him. At that time, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. Bodyguard Zhua was getting angrier and angrier as he shouted. Have all the preparations we made previously become a joke? Yesterday, the preparations that His Excellency had mentioned were actually the protozoan that the Five Xiang Association had prepared. In the past few days, His Excellency had relied on his own channels to secretly transport a large number of protozoan that could be immune to the qi to the Tokyo area, preparing to use them to give the fairy tale an indelible blow when the next operation was carried out. For this, His Excellency had also planned a lot of things. However, the center of these plans were all centered around these protozoan that could be immune to the qi now. Noah had created such an artificial artifact, which was equivalent to strangling all of His Excellency's plans to death. It was precisely because of this that Bodyguard Zhuo was so angry, and His Excellency and Li Qingyin had such a big reaction to this news. Recalling all the efforts he had made in the past, which were actually resolved so cleanly by Noah, His Excellency's heart was also furious. However, compared to the incompetent Bodyguard Zhuo, His Excellency could sit in the position of the top operatives of the Five Xiang Association. Obviously he was not brainless. Now, if we face the fairy tale, we won't have any advantage. His Excellency took a deep breath, and finally, with an extremely unwilling voice, he made such a decision. Give up the plan, let's take the long view. What? Bodyguard Zhuo was shocked, and then his face distorted. Give up the plan? In other words, His Excellency was not going to deal with Noah? What kind of joke is this? Bodyguard Zhuo growled out. Let me watch that guy get what he wants. Absolutely impossible. In addition to hatred for Noah, Bodyguard Zhuo also had endless jealousy. In the beginning, Bodyguard Zhuo was eyeing the Holy Son of Heaven covetously. In addition to coveting the Holy Son of Heaven's beauty, he also wanted to become the ruler of the Tokyo area and rise to the sky in one step. However, all of this was not only destroyed by Noah, but the other party also easily got what Bodyguard Zhuo had always wanted. For example, the Holy Son of Heaven. Bodyguard Zhuo had long known that the Holy Son of Heaven definitely had some special feelings for Noah. As a bodyguard, Bodyguard Zhuo had seen the Holy Son of Heaven stare at Noah's back more than once. It was because of this that Bodyguard Zhuo hardened his heart, and under the instigation of the Tendo Chrysanthemum, he went to the fairy tale station and buried countless bombs there. Today, Noah even developed a monster guild that Bodyguard Zhuo looked down on into a giant that could affect the world and compete for the hegemony of the world. How could Bodyguard Zhuo, who originally coveted the position that the Holy Son of Heaven brought to him, not be jealous? Driven by the negative feelings of hatred and jealousy, Bodyguard Zhuo could not imagine that he would continue to watch Noah show off his strength. Regarding Noah, Bodyguard Zhuo only had one thought. That was to kill. Your Excellency, we can't give up. Bodyguard Zhuo said hatefully. That bastard is the master of Fairyland. If we don't get rid of him, it will be much more difficult for our Wusheng Association to obtain the hegemony of the world. Do I need you to remind me of this? His Excellency glanced coldly at Bodyguard Zhuo, and there was some irritation in his tone. With that artificial artifact, and with the cursed children all over the world flowing into Fairyland, it won't be difficult for Noah Dole to obtain the hegemony of the world. This person is our greatest enemy, how can I not understand? But it is because of this that we have to give up on the plan, right? Li Qingyin said softly. With that artificial artifact and the many initiators in Fairyland, we have no chance of winning in a direct attack. That's right. His Excellency laughed coldly. We have no chance of winning in a direct attack. His Excellency's cold words made Li Qingyin raise an eyebrow. I see. Li Qingyin smiled pleasantly. Are you trying to change the attack in the open to assassinate in the dark? That's right. His Excellency nodded, and raised his hand, holding a mobile phone in his hand, and smiled meaningfully. It just so happens that a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity has appeared before my eyes. Your Excellency, Bodyguard Zhuo quickly said. What about us? You guys are on standby for now. His Excellency waved his hand. Also, have the mechanical soldiers gathered in Tokyo come over, and listen to my orders at all times. Hearing that, Li Qingyin and Bodyguard Zhuo nodded either nonchalantly or reluctantly. Chapter 2138. No matter how the rats hiding in the dark jumped around, at least on the surface, Noah had won all the victories. On the same day, the Holy Sun followed Noah's instructions and announced the entire process and results of the international conference. He also spread the video of the fairy tale initiator team conquering one of the 3 demon realms. As soon as the announcement was made, the entire Tokyo area was in an uproar. There's hope. There's hope. We humans finally have the hope of defeating all the proto-god animals. All the people were wild with joy, completely falling into a huge surprise. On this day, almost all the people in the Tokyo area shed tears of joy, and like a national celebration, there was a lot of noise and celebration. Under the Holy Sun's intentional manipulation, such a huge piece of news spread to the world at an unimaginable speed, causing all the humans in the world to go crazy. All humans were hit by a huge surprise on this day. They felt like they were in a dream and could not react for the whole day. It could not be helped. Humans had always been persecuted by the proto-god animals, and it was too much. To put it bluntly, living in this era could only be described as painful. This was because no one knew when they would be swallowed into the stomach of a protogut animal that suddenly jumped out from the corner and died. Similarly, no one knew when the place they lived would be overrun by an army of protogut animals and completely fall into hell. Therefore, in this era, almost all humans could be said to be living in hell, suffering every day. This kind of pain happened to be an important factor that bred the dark side of humans. Now, the announcement of the artificial artifact and the policy of fairyland had let all humans see hope. They saw the hope of completely defeating the protogut animals, no longer being threatened by their lives at all times, and could live freely under the sun without the need to live in fear. Under such circumstances, a series of butterfly effects occurred one after another. For example, in the Tokyo area, the people who once doubted Noah, hated Noah, and could not understand Noah's action of sheltering the cursed children all changed their minds, repenting one after another. Similarly, in various parts of the world, the people were overjoyed. Just as Noah had said before, they began to organize demonstrations and advocate for the government to send all the cursed children in their country to fairyland to contribute to the salvation of humanity. In some countries, there were even people who had developed faith in Noah and began to raise the banner that Noah was the savior sent by the gods, openly recruiting believers. Years of oppression and yearning for the era when humans once flourished made all humans stand on Noah's side, supporting Noah and fairyland. In this regard, the world could do nothing. All those in power knew what it meant to send all the cursed children in their country to fairyland. Before this, fairyland already had the ability to unify the world. And now, if the cursed children were to be moved to fairyland under strict management by various nations, it would simply weaken themselves and strengthen fairyland's ability, making it easier for the world's hegemony to fall into fairyland's hands. Furthermore, with the release of the artificial divine item, every cursed child that fairyland gained was equivalent to gaining an army. Under such circumstances, it would not take long for fairyland to rise above all nations and become the world's most powerful nation. When that time comes, if they were to make a move against the world, which nation could resist? Even if they did, would all the nations in the world combined have the ability to stop them? Naturally, the answer was no. Furthermore, fairyland would continue to accept requests from all over the world through the form of commission as before. With the loss of the cursed children, the world would probably have to increase the number of commissions sent to fairyland from now on, and be squeezed for money by fairyland? Just like in the world of Seeking a Chance encounter in the underground city, Eulalie became the center of the world because she monopolized magic stones. With fairyland monopolizing the cursed children, it was only a matter of time before it became the center of the world as well. That way, before the protozoa were completely wiped out, every nation in the world would be at fairyland's mercy. It was a situation that none of the world's rulers were willing to see. For that reason, some rulers did their best to oppose the decision, revealing fairyland's conspiracy to their citizens, only to incur the wrath of the citizens whose desire for survival had erupted. One after another, they were denounced, with some even ousted from power. Some rulers sighed, resigned themselves to their fate, and sent out envoys to fairyland, hoping to forge a good relationship with fairyland. Some rulers, however, had other intentions, feigning compliance but secretly opposing, attempting to hide some of the cursed children with potential and ability. Furthermore, some of those in power even intended to use the cursed child as a bargaining chip to negotiate terms with fairyland. Of course, the latter would basically end badly. The reason Noah did not rely on his own power to crush the nations was because he did not want the cursed children to be used by the rulers of the nations to threaten him. After all, there was a malicious part of the human heart. Who knew when others would viciously disgust him? With that in mind, Noah and Mugging formulated a series of countermeasures to deal with those rulers with ulterior motives. Therefore, those rulers would probably kowtow until their heads bled in fairyland, and could only send their cursed children to fairyland with their tails between their legs. Then, Noah announced another piece of news that shook the world. To protect the living forces of the protozoa, every nation in the world must enact laws and regulations related to the protection of the cursed children. If they do not comply, fairyland will never accept any commission from that nation. In many nations today, the cursed children basically had no human rights. Some did not even have a household register, and were treated as garbage that could be thrown or picked up anywhere. In the past, people never thought that there was anything wrong with that. After all, while people claimed that the cursed children were humanity's last hope, no one cared when the protozoa's numbers did not decrease but instead increased, and defeating the protozoa was still far away. But now, things were different. The annihilation of fairyland told everyone that the cursed children who had obtained artificial divine artifacts could conquer the three great demonic realms, and there was hope for defeating the protozoa. With the hope of salvation, the people finally began to realize who could truly save them. Therefore, before the nations of the world could react, the citizens once again became the sword in Noah's hand, pointing it at the national government. It was believed that the day when the cursed children would truly obtain human rights was not far away. Of course, even if that was not the case, they would still obtain happiness in line with their age in fairyland. With all that done, Noah and Mugging began to tinker with countermeasures, intending to have every nation transfer the cursed children born in the future to fairyland. Everything was developing in the direction Noah envisioned. It's all here. In the living room of the holy abode, Athena put a document on the table, her seductive snake eyes staring at Mugging as she said, "This is the method to create the artificial divine artifact for the cursed children. You can hand it to the technicians in fairyland for mass production. While the efficiency is definitely not as high as when I do it myself, it should not be difficult to mass produce one artificial divine artifact a day." Understood. Mugging solemnly put away the document. "Then, I'll take it." Beside him, the Elysian Emperor and Rintaro's eyes followed the document until it was put away by Mugging before they reluctantly withdrew their gazes. That was humanity's hope to defeat the protozoa. Between the Elysian Emperor and Rintaro, one was peace-loving, the other upholding justice, and naturally valued that small document. Seeing this, Noah quietly asked Athena, "Can the technicians of this world create artificial divine artifacts?" "This artificial divine artifact is only effective when it is embedded with the snake gem," Athena replied. Without the power of the snake, this artificial divine artifact is just a strange shell, so even the humans of this world can mass produce it. Noah nodded in relief. Chapter 2139. The artificial artifact that belonged to the cursed child had the side effect of increasing the infection rate of the protozoan virus to the limit. If the method of making the artifact were to spread and fall into the hands of those with ill intentions, it may cause some of the cursed children to become sacrificial lambs. Therefore, if possible, Noah would of course want to have full control of this artificial artifact that belonged to the cursed children in the hands of fairyland. There was no doubt that Athena had done this. The power of the snake provided by Orpheus and Lilith was now just like the matrix of the anacosm, there was only one. Meanwhile, the outer shell of the artifact could be made by the humans of this world. Once the outer shell was made, a gem could be extracted from the snake and embedded into it. Only then could the artifact be completed. Because the snake had only one relationship, and just like the anacosm, the artifact would definitely be firmly in the hands of fairyland. Moreover, Athena had also set up a defense mechanism in the artifact, so that the artifact would only work on the cursed child at the beginning. Once the target was changed, it would automatically self-destruct, and even if it was snatched, it would not be used by others. As long as both the anacosm and the artifact were firmly in the hands of fairyland, the status of fairyland would not be shaken. Noah's initial goal of creating a utopia where all the cursed children could live happily in this world was now basically complete. All that was left was to protect. After all, it's easy to attack a city, but difficult to defend. However, with Mugging, Hina, Xiashur, Yanzhu, Rentaro and other reliable companions, Noah believed that fairyland would be able to continue to develop unscathed. To be able to fulfill this initial wish before the final battle, Noah had no regrets. With that thought in mind, Noah couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. Athena's pair of bewitching snake eyes stopped on Noah, as if she saw something from Noah's smile, but did not say anything, and just looked at Noah silently. Master. Aster wasn't as smart as Athena. She sensed the change in Noah's state of mind. She was worried that Noah would leave her, so she gently snuggled into Noah's embrace. Although Orpheus and Lilith were innocent and didn't know much about the world, their senses were very sharp. They followed Aster and stuck close to Noah. She really likes to act like a spoiled child, Noah couldn't help but laugh. He reached out and gently stroked the girls' heads. Tina and Yen Zhu's brows furrowed when they saw how intimate they were with each other. Big brother sure is biased. Tina muttered to herself. Such a good relationship, it really makes people jealous. Yen Zhu puffed up her cheeks in dissatisfaction. Even Xiaoshu looked at this scene with some envy, making Mu Gang, who was at the side, almost laugh. Saitiko and Rintaro watched the interaction between Noah, Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith with watchful eyes. They couldn't help but smile. A warm atmosphere instantly spread throughout the lounge. After a while, Elysian son of heaven broke the silence and asked Noah. Is the reception of Fairyland ready? I've left it to Mu Gang. Noah continued stroking the girls' heads as he turned his gaze to Mu Gang. It should be ready, right? No problem, I've made the arrangements as soon as possible. Mu Gang smiled confidently. Now we just have to wait for the countries around the world to send the cursed children over. But will those fellows obediently send the cursed children over? Rintaro asked doubtfully. I don't think everyone will obey. It doesn't matter. We've already started the census of the countries around the world. Our guild's tour group has been to countries without a census register. It won't be difficult to count the number of cursed children, Mugging said. So you don't have to worry. There won't be any problems with the reception. I'll make the arrangements. But what about a dictator like President Chi Wu? Hina asked. Although Big Brother threatened the president at the meeting, I don't think he's someone who will listen obediently. In fact, the only question left is what President Chi Wu will do. Xiaoshu said. According to our spies, the rest of the countries seem to have made their moves. They're either compromising or doing something in private. We've already prepared countermeasures. But President Chi Wu's behavior is a bit strange. Saitiko said worriedly. Now, the representatives from all over the world have left the Tokyo area and returned to their respective countries. Only the president of Chi Wu has remained in the Tokyo area. I wonder what that dictator is thinking. He hasn't left? Noah suddenly raised his head and looked at Saitiko. Zhongshuan of Chi Wu hasn't left Tokyo? Yes. Saitiko nodded. Not only that, President Chi Wu doesn't seem to be leaving anytime soon. He's been staying in the hotel. Hearing this, Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. It had been almost a week since the international conference. He didn't expect Zhongshuan of Chi Wu to still be in Tokyo. Of course, Noah didn't think Zhongshuan of Chi Wu would stay in Tokyo for no reason. This guy must be planning something. Thinking of this, Noah asked Saitiko. During this time, did Zhongshuan of Chi Wu do anything suspicious? No, President Chi Wu has been staying in the hotel and hasn't gone out. Saitiko answered truthfully. I also sent someone to talk to President Chi Wu, but they didn't even get to meet him. According to President Chi Wu's bodyguards, President Chi Wu seems to be in poor health these days, so he wants to stay in Tokyo for the time being to recuperate. Recuperate? Yen Zhu curled her lips. What a clumsy excuse. Even I can see through it. Yes. Noah nodded and turned to look at Athena. What do you think? Following Noah's question, everyone present looked at Athena. Noah once said that Athena's wisdom was even better than the 4 wise men, who were known as the world's strongest minds. Presumably, this child must have some opinion. And indeed, Athena said this sentence without hesitation. The president is probably not in the hotel anymore. Not in the hotel? Everyone was stunned. You mean? Noah hesitated for a moment and said. Did Zhongshuan sneak out of the hotel without anyone noticing? Although it's just a guess. Athena nodded casually. But the president has been staying here, and no one has seen him. If recuperating is an excuse, then this person is very likely not in the hotel anymore. Athena's words were unusually convincing. If President Chiwu is not in the hotel, where did he go? Saitiko couldn't hide his uneasiness. What is he doing in the Tokyo area? Letting such an ambitious guy wander around in his territory was indeed not a good thing to worry about. It was natural for Saitiko to be so uneasy. Not only Saitiko, but even Mugang and Rentaro frowned. Noah was the only one who suddenly said this. Mugang, the person I asked you to send to monitor Zhongshuan during the international conference is following him now, right? When Noah mentioned this, Mugang immediately reacted. Without answering, Mugang took out her phone and walked to the side to make a call. After a while, Mugang hung up the phone and came back. How is it, Miss Mugang? Miss Mugang? Ryotaro asked impatiently. Did he say anything? Mugang nodded solemnly. He looked around at everyone and said, let's go. There seems to be important information about Zhongshuan. Important information about Zhongshuan? Everyone's eyes lit up. The person you sent is quite capable. Noah smiled and said to Mugang. What kind of information is it? I don't know yet. It's not safe to talk about it over the phone. Mugang looked straight at Noah. So, do you want to meet him directly? Noah thought for a moment and nodded after a while. Mugang and Rentaro both smiled. It was a happy thing to be able to meet his guardian. Chapter 2140. Ding dong. With the crisp sound of a wind chime, the door to a cafe was pushed open. Both Noya and Ryotaro entered the cafe through the door. Welcome. A waiter immediately stepped forward with a smile on his face and bowed to Noah and Ryotaro. Hello, Ryotaro greeted the waiter. I'm Ryotaro. I've arranged to meet someone here. That person should have arrived already, right? Are you Ryotaro? The waiter answered without hesitation. Please follow me. With that, the waiter led the way. Noah and Ryotaro looked at each other, then followed the waiter into the depths of the cafe. Under the waiter's lead, Noah and Ryotaro arrived at a corner. There was already someone there. It was a man with a pineapple-like hairstyle and wearing a traditional pantsuit. He should be over 50 years old, the same age as the head of the cafe. A middle-aged man sat in a corner of the cafe, leisurely sipping his coffee. When he saw Noah and Rentaro coming in from outside, his eyes lit up. He stood up and waved his hand in a forthright manner. Ryotaro, over here. Ryotaro immediately smiled faintly and brought Noah forward to stand in front of the other party. It's been a while, Mr. Zihang, Ryotaro greeted. I'm relieved to see that you're as healthy as before. I'm even more relieved than you are. The middle-aged man whom Ryotaro addressed as Zihang smiled. Kid, ever since you left Tokyo and moved to Fairyland, you've been traveling around the world. I think you're the leader of a tour group. I heard that you often get into conflicts with those powerful people from other countries. I've been worried about when you'd die. To be honest, there were a few times when I thought I was going to die. Ryotaro smiled bitterly. But fortunately, I managed to pull through. That's right. You've made it through. Zihang patted Ryotaro's shoulder emotionally. That's why you've become one of the top 10 promoters in the IP rankings. Even the countries in the world can't ignore your existence. In the past, I really didn't even dream that a guy like you who couldn't even eat enough could reach this step. Can't you give me some face? The bitter smile on Ryotaro's face deepened, and his tone became a little rough. I heard that your business is getting better and better. Miss Mugang has bought pie medals from you several times, right? I am also very grateful to that girl for taking care of my business. Zihang grinned before he quickly asked. Didn't Mugang come? It can't be helped. Ms. Mugang is a public figure after all. Everyone knows that she's the acting president of Fairyland and has appeared on television countless times. She can't possibly come to a cafe like this, can she? Ryotaro said. However, I did bring our immediate superior here. Immediate superior? As if he had just noticed Noah's existence, Ziheng turned his gaze to Noah. After staring at Noah for a while, he suddenly clapped his hands. Isn't this President Noah who defeated the Scorpio of the Zodiac 3 years ago, saved Tokyo during the Third Great War of Tokyo, and founded Fairy Tale? Hello, Mr. Ziheng. Noah nodded at Ziheng. I'm Noah Dole. You can just call me Noah. It's really you. Ziheng was flattered and smiled. I've long heard of President Noah's great name. Thank you so much for taking care of Ryotaro and Mugging. What are you talking about? Noah shook his head. Mugging and Ryotaro are both very reliable talents. They relied entirely on their own efforts to get to where they are today. President Noah, you don't have to be so humble. I know Mugging and Ryotaro better than anyone else. Although these two guys are very capable, they always make mistakes in some inconspicuous areas. Otherwise, they wouldn't have fallen to the point where they could only set up a poor police company. Ziheng laughed. By the way, let me introduce myself first. I'm Senichi Ziheng. You can say that I'm Senichi Ziheng, the nominal guardian of Ryotaro and Mugging. Hearing that, Noah shook hands with Ziheng while recalling the information that Ryotaro had told him. The middle-aged man in front of him was indeed Ryotaro and Mugging's nominal guardian. In the past, Senichi Ziheng used to be the butler of the Tentong family. He knew Mugging and Ryotaro since they were young and took good care of them. After Mugging and Rintaro severed ties with the Tentong family and completely left, Ziheng Xianyi took on the role of their guardian. Even the Tentong civilian guard company that Mugging used to run was registered and guaranteed by him. Otherwise, Mugging and Ryotaro, who were still students at that time, would not have successfully registered a company. Not long after that, Senichi Ziheng left the Tentong family and bought a mine. He specialized in excavating pi metal and started a business. Because of that, Senichi Ziheng had many connections and helped Mugging and Ryotaro a lot. Previously, when Noah asked Mugging to send someone to keep an eye on Xian Shi, the person that Mugging looked for was Senichi Ziheng. Alright, don't just stand there. Sit down first. Ziheng welcomed them warmly. Noah and Ryotaro naturally had no reason to refuse and sat down together. At that moment, the attendant who had been waiting at the side finally came up and looked at Noah excitedly. Excuse me. Excuse me, are you really the owner of Fairyland, President Noah, the one who released the artificial artifact and brought the hope of saving mankind? Noah had forgotten that there was an attendant beside him. Looking at the attendant's excited expression, he scratched his cheek. That's me, but please don't tell anyone. I don't want to be surrounded. I understand. The attendant was extremely excited and careful as he spoke to Noah. Thank you so much for bringing us hope, President Noah. Please do your best. I will support you. Can you shake my hand? Looking at the attendant's excited expression, Noah laughed dryly and extended his hand. The waiter immediately blushed and held Noah's hand tightly. Then, with an "ah" sound, he ran away happily without a trace. Noah was speechless. Even Rintaro was taken aback as he muttered to himself. Could it be that these are the legendary fans? Now, there are many people in the Tokyo area who have become fans of President Noah. Ziheng also smiled mockingly. After all, he is the savior who brings the hope of saving mankind. I heard that there are even people in foreign countries who have established a religion and gathered many believers because of this. President Noah may be deified in the future. Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect that after releasing the artificial artifact, it would cause such an effect. This was something that Noah did not expect. After all, in this world, Noah had always been known as the shelter of the cursed child and was despised by all humans who hated and rejected the cursed child. As such, Noah did not expect that the release of an artificial artifact would make him, who was known as the shelter of monsters, become the savior in people's hearts. This also showed the fickleness of humans. They could hate others because of one factor, and they could also worship others because of another factor. Was this how the saying, love begets hate, hate begets love, came about? When he thought of this, Noah secretly sighed in his heart. Fortunately, I'm not like Mugging, who often appears on TV and knows what I look like. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to walk the streets now. However, Noah did not do all this to become the savior and superstar in people's hearts. Noah's actions were only to protect Fairyland and the children. Mr. Ziheng, let's get to the point. Noah looked at Ziheng. Mugging said that you have been watching Chiwu Zhongshuan all this time and you seem to have gained something. It's up to President Noah to judge whether it's a gain or not. Ziheng rummaged through a small bag on the side and took out something from it and put it on the table. I just relied on some connections to get this thing. Hearing Ziheng's words, Noah and Ryotaro immediately looked at the table. Ziheng took out a photo. The person in the photo was Chiwu Zhongshuan. In the photo, Chiwu Zhongshuan was in a dark corner. There was a person in front of him. Chapter 2141. Looking at the photo on the table, Noah and Ryotaro frowned at the same time. There was no other reason. In the photo, in a dark corner, Chiwu Zhongshuan's back and side profile were very clear. However, the face of the person who was talking to Chiwu Zhongshuan was blocked by Chiwu Zhongshuan, so he couldn't see it at all. I only received this photo today. While Noah and Ryotaro were frowning, Ziheng spoke. When Mujenko asked me to find someone to keep an eye on Chiwu Zhongshuan, I asked a worker from the mine to stay in front of the hotel where Chiwu Zhongshuan was staying and keep an eye on him 24/7. Then, yesterday, the workers saw Chiwu Zhongshuan sneaking out of the hotel without a single bodyguard. He took a taxi to the 12th district of Tokyo and met the person in the photo. Ziheng pointed at the person in the photo who was blocked by Chiwu Zhongshuan. This photo was taken at that time. In other words, Chiwu Zhongshuan did sneak out of the hotel yesterday and met with someone, right? Ryotaro sorted out the information and looked at Noah. What do you think? What else can I think? Noah curled his lips. Although I don't know what the dictator is planning to do, it can't be anything good if he's doing something so sneaky. The problem is, it seems that someone is planning to help Chiwu Zhongshuan. Ryotaro's tone was a little unfriendly. Chiwu Zhongshuan didn't bring any bodyguards and took a taxi to meet with this person alone. This means that this person should be someone in the Tokyo area, right? Is it a spy that Chiwu Zhongshuan arranged in the Tokyo area? Or did someone really reach an agreement with Chiwu Zhongshuan? Noah said indifferently. In any case, there's too little information to infer anything. Then what should we do? Ryotaro asked. Are we going to take this photo to the hotel to question the dictator? No, now is not the time. Noah glanced at the person in the photo who was talking to Chiwu Zhongshuan. At the very least, I need to confirm who is meeting with Chiwu Zhongshuan in private. Otherwise, even if I kill Chiwu Zhongshuan, there will be a rat spying on us in the dark. That's true. Rentaro nodded. Then how are you going to confirm this person's identity? Go find the Holy Son of Heaven, Noah said bluntly. Although the location in the photo is a hidden corner, since it's not the outer peripheral area that hasn't been rebuilt after the Protogut War, it's possible that a surveillance camera captured this scene. You mean the Holy Son of Heaven? Ryotaro seemed to come to a sudden realization and sighed. Only you would call His Excellency the Holy Son of Heaven by his full name in public. You also said it's in private. Noah smiled helplessly. No matter what, that girl is the ruler of Tokyo. On the surface, I still have to call her respectfully. If you want to call her respectfully, then don't call her that girl. Rintaro rolled his eyes. Otherwise, who are you trying to fool? Hearing this, Noah could only spread out his hands to show that he was innocent. He couldn't help it. No matter what, he shouldn't call his lover Lord Holy Son of Heaven. If he did, the first person to complain would be the Holy Son of Heaven. Ziheng, who had been quietly listening to the conversation between Noah and Rintaro, couldn't help but smile. Although I don't know what's going on, but this photo of mine should be of some help to you, right? Of course, Rintaro said without hesitation. You've helped us a lot, Mr. Ziheng. I'll take this photo with me. Noah put away the photo on the table and said to Ziheng. Mr. Ziheng, thank you so much for your help. You're welcome. My matter is insignificant. You're the master of Fairyland. If you want to find someone to spy on someone, it's just a matter of moving your lips. I should be grateful that I can help. Ziheng waved his hand and smiled generously. Of course, if President Noah can take care of my business a little, that would be even better. I'll keep that in mind. Noah shrugged helplessly. Anyway, thank you for your help, Mr. Ziheng. Aya, you're too polite. Ziheng laughed bitterly. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said such a sentence. But, if I'm lucky, I may have the opportunity to deal with President Noah in the future. Oh. Noah was slightly surprised. What do you mean? It's not something worth hiding. Ziheng looked at Noah and said solemnly. Actually, I plan to participate in the election of the next ruler of Tokyo. The election of the next ruler of Tokyo? Noah was stunned. Mr. Ziheng? Rentaro was completely stunned and did not react for a long time. Then, Noah and Rentaro looked at each other. It seems that I've scared you. Ziheng scratched his head apologetically and laughed. Just pretend that you didn't hear it. Unfortunately, it was really difficult to pretend that they did not hear it. The reason for that was because the matter that Ziheng spoke of was no small matter. Since the establishment of Tokyo, the first generation of the Son of Heaven came to power and became the ruler of Tokyo. For a long time, the position of ruler of Tokyo was almost hereditary. The first generation of the Son of Heaven inherited the position of ruler and became the second generation of the Son of Heaven. The second generation of the Son of Heaven also inherited the position of ruler and became the third generation of the Son of Heaven. Noah's lover, the holy girl that he was secretly dating, was the third generation of the Son of Heaven in Tokyo. In other words, the grandmother and mother of the Son of Heaven were the previous generation of rulers of Tokyo. Now, the position of ruler fell on the head of the Son of Heaven. Therefore, the position of ruler of Tokyo, at least since the first generation of the Son of Heaven, has been hereditary. Moreover, it seems that the system will continue to be hereditary. After all, 3 years ago, before Noah left this world, the Elysian Emperor had confessed to him that the Elysian Emperor's confidants had been urging him to quickly decide on his other half so that they could get married and have children, and determine the next Elysian Emperor's successor. Now, Ziheng said that he wanted to participate in the election of the next ruler of Tokyo? Doesn't that mean that Ziheng wants to end the hereditary system of the Son of Heaven? Mr. Ziheng. Rentaro was very surprised. Are you serious? Well, I guess you can say that I'm serious. Ziheng did not choose to be perfunctory in the end and frankly admitted it. People have to climb higher. Just like how the Sima family used to be in the weapons business, but now they have replaced the Tendo family and have a high position in Tokyo's political arena, I also want to stand out a little. I don't just want to be a businessman in the pie metal business, I want to have a seat in the political arena. That's true. Rentaro said hesitantly. But, isn't it a little too rushed to set your sights on the position of ruler of Tokyo? That's why I think the chances of losing are much higher than the chances of being elected. Ziheng laughed. But, if by some miracle I really become the ruler of Tokyo, President Noah, you have to help me then, okay? As he said that, Ziheng looked at Noah with a strange gaze. Fairyland's position in the world will become extremely important, and you can even control countries around the world. My little Tokyo region will be under your care then. Hearing Ziheng's words, Rentaro was completely speechless. Noah, on the other hand, met Ziheng's gaze as his eyes flickered. Because Noah knew that Ziheng was serious. Although he said it so casually, this person probably wanted to go all out and become the ruler of Tokyo. He did not expect Rentaro and Mugeng's guardian to have such ambition. Of course, even Rentaro did not expect Ziheng to have such ambition. Otherwise, he would have said a word. The atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. Chapter 2142. After leaving the cafe, Noah and Rentaro walked side by side to a limousine. Inside the limousine, the chauffeur got out of the driver's seat and opened the door for Noah and Rentaro. Not long after, the limousine slowly began to move forward. Noah and Rentaro sat opposite each other in the limousine. After a while, Rentaro spoke up. "I'm sorry." Hearing this, Noah asked directly. "Why are you apologizing?" "Because of Mr. Ziheng." Rentaro sighed. "I didn't know that Mr. Ziheng wanted to become the next ruler of Tokyo." "I can see that." Noah continued to laugh. "But what does that have to do with your apology? Don't you care at all?" Rentaro asked in confusion. "Mr. Ziheng wants to participate in the election of the next ruler of Tokyo. Is there a problem with that?" Noah asked. "It's not like he wants to become the next ruler of Tokyo. There shouldn't be a problem, right?" Rentaro was confused. "In other words, you agree with Mr. Ziheng's decision to become the next ruler of Tokyo?" "Why would I object?" Noah asked with a half-smile. "Just like Mr. Ziheng said, it's normal for people to want to climb higher. I have no reason to object, right?" "Why not?" Rentaro asked without hesitation. "If the Son of Heaven has a child, then the next ruler of Tokyo should be the Son of Heaven. Although Mr. Ziheng doesn't want to oust the Son of Heaven, if the election is successful, then the Son of Heaven won't be able to become the ruler of Tokyo." "You're being too absolute." Noah's expression didn't change. "No matter what, as long as Mr. Ziheng doesn't want to threaten the Son of Heaven, then I have no reason to object. If that girl knew about this, she would think the same. After all, in her eyes, the ruler of Tokyo should be someone who can bring peace and happiness to the people. It's not a symbol of power, but a symbol of responsibility. If Mr. Ziheng can bring peace to the Tokyo region, then she definitely won't mind abdicating." Noah smiled at Rentaro. "So, don't think too much. Mr. Ziheng is not my enemy at the moment." "Is that so?" Rentaro felt relieved. "That's good." Looking at Rentaro's relaxed expression, Noah sighed inwardly. Although Ziheng would not become Noah's enemy at the moment, there was no guarantee that he would not become one in the future. As long as Ziheng didn't give up on becoming the ruler of Tokyo. Why? Because of age. Immortal Ziheng was already over 50 years old. On the other hand, the Holy Son of Heaven was only around 20 years old. In other words, as long as nothing happened to Xingtianzi could still be the ruler of Tokyo for a long time. In this way, if Ziheng Immortal wanted to wait for the sage Son of Heaven to abdicate, he might not even be able to wait until he died of old age. Under such circumstances, if Ziheng Immortal Ziheng wanted to become the ruler of Tokyo, then attacking Xingtianzi was the only way. That was why Noah said that Ziheng was not his enemy at the moment, but in the future, it was hard to say. Of course, if Ziheng really wanted to wait for Xingtianzi to abdicate before fighting for the Tokyo region's ruler, then Noah would not object. Perhaps some people would think that with Noah's relationship with Xingtianzi, he would help pave the way for Xingtianzi's heirs, so that her heirs could continue to be the ruler of Tokyo, instead of giving it to an outsider. However, if one thought about it carefully, they would realize that it would be foolish of them to think that way. Noah did not give up on Xingtianzi's idea. This silly girl had waited for him for 3 years, and when she appeared in front of the world at Fairyland, she was the first to stand up and resolutely declared her side, becoming an ally of Fairyland. Noah had no reason to give up on her. In this way, it would be normal for the two to talk about marriage in the future. In that case, Xingtianzi's heirs could only be Noah's heirs. When that time comes, as the owner of Fairyland, would Noah let his daughter, don't ask why not his son, run to another region to be the ruler? Of course not. Even if she wanted to be, she would have to be the ruler of Fairyland. Therefore, there was no reason to protect Xingtianzi's heirs. Anyway, don't think too much. I'm not hostile to Mr. Ziheng, I'm just shocked by his target, Noah said to Rentaro. Now, let's focus on dealing with Qiwu Zhongshuan, don't let this dictator do anything here. Got it. Rentaro nodded. So, are we going back to the holy residence now? There's no need for that. Noah took out his phone. You can just call the Holy Son of Heaven. With that, Noah dialed Xingtianzi's private number that only he knew. The black limousine drove forward, brushing past the cars as it quickly shuttled across the road. It was traveling at about 90 kilometers per hour, neither too fast nor too slow, allowing the black limousine to drive forward until it finally drove into an area. After a while, the limousine stopped in a parking lot. Noya and Rentaro both got out of the car and immediately raised their heads to look in front of them. In front of them was a skyscraper. It was so tall that it surpassed the surrounding buildings. The entire building was black as if it was made of ash. In front of the skyscraper was a slab of stone. There was a line of large words on the slab. Central Control and Development Agency? Rentaro was puzzled. Where is this? How would I know? Noah spread his hands. After explaining the situation to Xingtianzi, she asked me to come here. She said that she would arrange for someone to help us with the investigation. Is that so? Rentaro looked around. Then where is she? Noya glanced at Ryotaro and gestured to the front with his lips. Isn't that right? Hearing Noah's words, Rentaro raised his head and looked over. Then, his expression stiffened. In the skyscraper in front of them, a person was walking out of the door with 2 guards. President Noah, Torai-san. The man had a kind smile on his face as he greeted them. We meet again. Cabinet. Rentaro didn't notice that his tone had unknowingly become unhappy. Why are you here? Xingtianzi asked me to wait here for your arrival. Cabinet didn't mind Rentaro's unhappy tone. The smile on his face was still as bright as ever. Didn't you two want to see the footage captured by the surveillance cameras in the Tokyo area? I'm here to help you too. Why are you here to help us? Ryotaro swallowed back those words with all his might. Meanwhile, Noah, who had been observing Ryotaro's performance, chuckled inwardly. This kid's attitude towards Cabinet Duru is so bad. Is it because Cabinet Duru used to be Mugen's fiancé? It seems that it's better to let this kid have less contact with Cabinet Duru. Otherwise, he might go berserk. At once, Noah turned to Toshiro and said, Cabinet Duru, can you show me the footage captured by the surveillance cameras in the Tokyo area? Xingtianzi asked me to do my best to fulfill President Noah's request. Since it's an order from Xingtianzi, I naturally have no reason to refuse. Cabinet Duru nodded without hesitation. The two of you, please come in with me. After that, Toshiro gestured toward the skyscraper with a please gesture. Then, Noah led Ryotaro, who was still in a bad mood, into the pitch-black skyscraper under the guidance of Toshiro Akiyama. There wasn't anything special about the interior of the skyscraper. It looked like a company building with people walking around everywhere. Noah and Rentaro took the elevator with Cabinet Duru. The elevator ascended at an astonishing speed and reached the 65th floor in one breath. Finally, Cabinet Duru led Noah and Rentaro to a room labeled Control Room. The bulletproof glass door opened, revealing the scene inside the room to Noah and Rentaro. Chapter 2143. This was a very spacious room, but it was extremely dark. There was almost no light in the room. The structure of the room was shaped like a fan. In the deepest part of the room, there was a large number of holographic screens stacked together, forming a futuristic scene. In the room, the only source of light was the holographic screens. On the screens, the numbers displayed in the form of bars were rapidly changing. Only the largest display in the center of the room showed a map. Noah and Rentaro immediately recognized the map. It was a map of the Tokyo area. "The two of you, please come in with me," Toshiro said as he led Noah and Rintaro into this futuristic room. Looking around, Noah asked curiously, "What is this place?" "If I were to summarize it in one sentence, it would be the control room that manages the electricity." Toshiro smiled meaningfully. "At least, this is what it looks like on the surface." "On the surface?" Rintaro turned around and looked at Toshiro. "In other words, there is another purpose for this place?" "Yes," Toshiro explained. "I'm sure the two of you know that electricity must be transmitted through high voltage and power lines to reach the final destination. But in this way, when the electricity is sent to an ordinary home, there will be a serious loss of electricity, which will lead to excessive waste, right? Moreover, there are also examples of large databases that require a large amount of power to be idle in order to prevent the server from overloading or a rapid increase in the amount of data. Only a portion of the power is used, and the rest is wasted." Toshiro pointed at the monitor in front of him. "This system is used to monitor the usage of energy, and under the premise of avoiding power outages, efficiently transmit and distribute the appropriate amount of electricity. Based on this idea, the first generation of shonen started to build this place. But since it has already been built to this scale, isn't it a bit wasteful to just use it to manage the electricity?" Noah very casually interjected. "So, while managing the electricity, it is necessary to have some other functions, such as managing the surveillance cameras in the Tokyo area, right?" As expected of President Noah. Toshiro shrugged helplessly. "That's right. If you're here, you'll be able to see the footage captured by all the surveillance cameras in Tokyo." "All of them?" Ryotaro couldn't help but be flabbergasted. "No wonder there are so many monitors here." "That's not right, Ryotaro," Noah corrected Ryotaro. "If this place can really monitor the entire Tokyo area, then the number of monitors here is too small. After all, the number of surveillance cameras in the entire Tokyo area was simply unimaginable. Stations, airports, banks, and other important facilities aside, the Tokyo area and even other areas were mostly equipped with surveillance cameras. This was because some of the protozoa might slip into the human's residence through the gaps in the magnetic field released by the giant stone monument and bring about a protozoa virus infection that was even more terrifying than the plague. In order to prevent the invasion of the protozoa and wipe them out at any time and place, every area was equipped with many surveillance cameras. Almost the entire area was monitored. Of course, when the number of surveillance cameras increased, it was almost impossible to know what was happening in every corner of an area at all times. If one were to take the Tokyo area as an example, the number of surveillance cameras here could be described as tens of thousands. With so many surveillance cameras, if someone were to manage them, who knew how much manpower it would take to manage all of them? So, it became necessary to use an AI system to manage the surveillance cameras, and this place was born. Toshiro seemed to be very impressed by Noah's sharp thinking. He stepped forward and walked to the large number of monitors. There were some staff members in front of these monitors. Toshiro whispered a few words to the staff members. The staff members nodded and began to operate. The next moment, the map of the Tokyo area on the central monitor began to be simplified and gradually expanded. Finally, it shrank into an area and was divided into several images, which were displayed in front of everyone. Toshiro turned around and said to Noah and Rintaro, "You two are looking for President Takashi, right? I've already asked someone to search through the facial recognition program installed in the control room here. We'll get the results soon." As soon as Toshiro finished speaking, the corner of the huge monitor that was divided into several images was enlarged and filled up the entire monitor. The image that appeared on the monitor was the scene of Takashi sitting on the sofa in a hotel room, holding a mobile phone. It was unknown who he was talking to. President Takashi is now in the hotel. He hasn't left. Toshiro shrugged. "Didn't you two go to the hotel to look for him earlier?" "What we want to see is not Takashi's current whereabouts," Noah said directly. "Show us the surveillance footage after Takashi sneaked out of the hotel yesterday." "Sneaked out of the hotel?" Toshiro rolled his eyes slightly. Obviously, he had some doubts about the situation in his heart. However, Toshiro still asked the staff to show him the surveillance footage from yesterday. After a while, the image on the central monitor changed again. This time, it showed the scene outside the hotel. Then, Noah, Rentaro, and Toshiro saw it at the same time. Takashi, who had changed out of his formal attire and was dressed as an ordinary staff member, did not bring any bodyguards with him. He went to the street alone, hailed a taxi, and left the hotel. Seeing this, Noah immediately ordered,